All right, 3, 2, 1.
Returning for its second installment is the HJ Raw before the 24 three classes of production racing in a pseudo-endurance format at Daytona International Speedway Road Course. Our fastest class, the Audi TCR. In the middle, the Ford Mustang FR500S and the Mazda MX-5 to, well, round out the field. But David Haynes here, Devin Peters joining me. Devin, I think that Mazda MX-5 class is looking the most competitive.
Yeah, they're in lockstep at the top there, and it was fun watching them in practice too. Glued bumper to bumper all the way around the tri-oval. So we know that class will deliver. Draft classes always do. But I think my favorite's going to be the Mustangs. As much as I love front-wheel drive car, the Mustangs are a blast around here, and there's plenty of traction zones at Daytona to make those cars a handful.
So looking at the weather there, a very beautiful afternoon in Florida, and we're going to be racing towards the sunset, but not so much into the night. Your pole sitter in each class for TCR, it's Mackenzie Corrance. In Mustang, it's Austin Cobb. And in the MX-5 class, it's Sonny Canchin. 2 hours, 25 minutes means we're going to see everyone on the pit lane at least once. The question in the Mustang class is this going to be a 2-stop race to get to the end? For the second HJ Raw before the 24, let's get ready to roar into life at Daytona. Grid on your screen for race start. Alongside Mackenzie Corrance on the front row of TCR is Matthew Warner. Jeff Tyler alongside Austin Cobb for the front row of the Mustangs, and it's DJ Alessandrini for the other driver making up the front row in class there in MX-5s. So the Ford Mustang pace car peels off the racetrack. Mackenzie Corrance wastes absolutely no time putting that turbocharged Audi power into the lead to get us started from Daytona.
Big jump from Austin Cobb out of the Mustangs. Takes about 5 car lengths before the rest of the Mustangs realize he's going. Diving into turn 1.
Turn 1, always a pinch point off the banking into a tightening corner. Looks like everyone from TCR has gotten through cleanly. They are jockeying around a little bit in MX-5 and in Mustang. A whole heap of changes on lap 1. You'd hope so. There's a lot of racing ahead of these guys.
I didn't
That's the problem with Alex Bueller.
Oh no. Yeah, and it looked like he just lit it up coming off the S's and slid straight across the International Horseshoe.
Yep, did look like it. Off of turn 1, cold tyres, caught some of the grass, and then speared across the track ahead of the TCR leaders, and he is done. Our first retirement, and that looked mainly self-inflicted.
Easy to do. I've gotten myself cut out here on cold tires on the first lap, especially with this many competitors. What do we got today? 45?
44. Now 43, so goodly numbers, and that is 15 in TCR, 13 in Mustang, 16 in MX-5. Pretty evenly balanced across all of the classes, so that should give us a great race in all of them. Mackenzie Corrance still leading, and all the other TCR cars behind him, I think, just willing to play the fuel game, play the conserve game at the moment. The only real movers at the front of that field was Nathan Block. Got up into 4th from 5th on the grid. Now he's going high on the banking, trying to take a look at our buddy from up north, Giovanni Romano. But you pull up high on the banking, you're taking the longer course, and you've pulled out of the slipstream. So let's see what happens then to complete the first lap. Are we going to see any moves into turn 1, Devin?
Looks like they're lining up something on the outside. Sorry, I don't have my car numbers up in TCR. Has Nathan Block going deep around the outside, logging up, wiggling, manages to stick it though. Will he get the run? Closes the door on Gio and he takes 3rd place.
Yeah, so Warner and Romano there, both, backing out of it a little bit, keeping it smooth into turn 1, staying in line. Nathan Block is being a little more aggressive early goings. It looks like we might end up with about a top 5 breakaway, because over 7th place, they are battling ferociously, the number 99.
Mm-hmm. The smart money is going to be on the driver who can keep it clean, especially through this early segment when everyone's close together, because 2 hours, 25 minutes is going to be more than enough time to shake out anyone who wasn't perfectly consistent all the way through practice.
Indeed, TCR cars always seem to race together pretty closely in a pack, but with the big slipstream that we have on the banks of Daytona, is keeping them even closer together, now into 2 packs, 6 for the lead, then a little 2-second buffer to William Calhoun leading a pack here. James Ferrugia is about to be under attack from Benjamin Morton, it looks like. Don't know if a move is going to happen there. Very well might, as they're going to be door-to-door, side-by-side coming into the bus stop. Morton very deep on the brakes, making sure he seals that position. They're going to be side-by-side behind that as well through the bus stop. Benjamin Morton grabs a position, but then they're immediately back onto the banking once again. Devon, any action in the other 2 classes?
Well, I'm keeping an eye on the Mazdas right now, and DJ Alessandrini and Clifford Eben, 1 and 2 currently, after starting in the opposite order, are running down towards towards the bus stop here. Those 2 have broken away already from the Mazdas behind them, and there's another little 3-car pack behind them: Graham D. Sanders, John D. Allen, and Rick Hombra, who is going to be making up that second pack. But I believe that things have mostly sorted out in the Mazda field. Meanwhile, in the Mustang field, after Austin Cobb ran away with that jump on the start, very well timed certainly, the 3 huge-ass Mustangs lined up behind him in blue and yellow, Jeff Tyler, Alex Albert, and Travis Floyd, have all been playing pretty nicely through this early phase of the race. That being said, I know all those guys are competitors, so it would not surprise me to see them start dueling a little bit later on in this race. But 1-car breakaway in the Mustangs, 2-car breakaway in the Mazdas.
And that shot of the 3 HJ cars is the branding opportunity that we hope for when we put these events on. So those guys keeping their powder dry at the moment in that class. Very, very easily a one-stop race for TCR, a one-stop race for the Mazdas. But I've been hearing out of the Mustang drivers that if they're going to make this a one-stop race, they're going to need to conserve a little bit. And if they are going to make it a 2-stop race and go flat out, then they need to pull about half a second a lap to be able to cover the extra time on pit lane.
Half a second's a lot to find around Daytona, unless you're getting a real good draft. Kind of thing. Wouldn't surprise me, though, to see Jeff Tyler try and close the gap up to Austin here, because if he can get into range, then that would be all 3 of the HJ cars getting some healthy draft, which I think would be an optimal result for them.
Your countryman Travis Floyd having some troubles through the bus stop there, but certainly the formation flying is going to help them if that's the strategy they're going for. They've broken away from the cars behind, but Kyle Hayer it looks like he's leading another little Mustang train as well.
Yeah, he put a move on Mike Burnett that kind of pushed Mike Burnett out of position at the start of this lap, and Burnett's all the way down in about 6th place in class, 7th place in class maybe, as they hit the line here with Daniel Rash making a move on the outside, and Jorge Saligo taking a move on Kyle there as well. 2 wide into turn number 1. Wisdom prevails. They line back up and get a clean exit.
Yeah, around the outside, you can make a move sometimes, but it didn't look like Daniel Rash was going to be able to do that. He is our defending champion in the Mustang class, the only driver to have returned from last year to try to defend their class honours. So it'll be interesting to see what Daniel Rash, just behind Kyle Hayer and Jorge Saligo here, is going to be able to do in terms of moving himself forward. It doesn't look like he's perfectly positioned at the moment to come out top trumps in class.
Meanwhile, back in the Mazda field, things are still looking pretty tight. I'm watching Graham D. Sanders right now, who has a little bit of damage on his back bumper from what I can only guess was an overzealous bump drafting maneuver. He's one of the few cars wearing that geodesic livery, and I watched them in warm-up and in practice, and those guys were 2-3 wide the whole way through. I think they were trying every single move they could think of. So I'm interested to see what they'll be able to do with this Mazda field here. Glued together as you'd expect, and still that two-car breakaway, DJ Alessandrini and Clifford Evan. But then this nice little pack of 5 here forming up with Graham, Sonny Katchen, Miguel Vigo, John DeAllen, and Robert Bodie rounding it out.
You can practice your lines on a clean, open track all you like, but definitely for these Mazda guys, it looks like every single lap for them is going to be about finding their place in the traffic, about managing who's behind them, who's in front, and the slipstream. Speaking of, here is John D. Allen just rolling out of the throttle, just not wanting to go too wide on the entry to the bus stop. I think he's hoping that those two in front are going to be able to catch Alessandrini and Eben.
Absolutely. But of course, in classic commentary fashion, as soon as we took a look at that battle, it calmed right down. Back at the front, though, the top 4 seem to have gotten right back together. And we got
this for TCR?
Mackenzie Correns and Nathan Block are still running 1 and 2. We're wearing matching liveries, but I think that's one of the stock ones. Oh no, that's Apex, isn't it? Anyway,
I'm not sure. There were some people in TCR with some matching liveries, but I didn't quite get to the bottom of that one. But it does seem like with the maybe limited power and the big aero on the TCR cars, they are very, very well stuck together. So maybe the strategy here is not eliminating a pit stop, but eliminating how much fuel you might need to take. Nathan Block, very aggressive, working his way through to the field, and now is compliant in second. So that might suggest he's working together with Mackenzie Correns. Both of them Canadians, so you don't know what they might be up to.
Hey, 3 out of the top 4 are Canadians, so it might be a very polite battle for the front of the field. But all of them pretty stiff fire ratings, north of 4,000. North, get it? But should be some intense battling too if they decide. It does sound like they're running into the limiter at the end of the straightaway, though. I heard cars just going wow, wow, wow as it came past the start-finish line that time.
That can happen in the TCR car. Fixed gearbox, and it's a little maybe on the shorter side. There's a few tracks, Daytona included, where in a good slipstream, possible to bounce against the limiter and find yourself making no more forward progress. Swap behind there, Sam Devontier gets down the inside at the first horseshoe on Max Wobbles, who might have lived up to his name a little too much there, but won't be a problem because it is still 6 cars covered in 1.5 seconds for the lead of TCR, and it looks like they're starting to catch a bit of traffic here.
Yeah,
just one stray car.
Yeah, Bo Rigger got into some trouble early on. Didn't see what caused it, but lost a few seconds, pointed the wrong way, and yeah, he's causing a little bit of drama for the TCR field as they go by, but not too much so far anyway.
Definitely the ground horsepower in the TCR cars to out-accelerate the Mazdas in a straight line, though.
Yeah, quite easily, as you can clearly tell as they're up on this banking. But getting back to the TCRs, I got to think that with the knowledge that the limiter is going to be a factor here, getting your runs of the corners is going to be really key. And with the way these TCR cars are set up, super duper duper loose to try and get them through the bus stop, it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to pass at the end of the stint if they're down a little bit on torque, or down a little bit on a run out of the exit of the corner with their tires coming off.
So we're very closely packed at the lead of TCR. In the lead of the Mustangs, looks like Austin Cobb has been reeled in just a little bit by my timing. Jeff Tyler's gotten it back within 1 second and very much is towing Alex Albert along with him. Still, that little mistake I saw maybe a lap or two ago for Travis Floyd appears to put him in a difficult position here.
Yeah, he's lost the lead 3 right now, and Alex is punishing his teammate a little bit the way he's bump drafting Jeff Tyler down that tri-oval here. If he can't find the draft, he might end up all alone because it is a long 4 or 5 seconds back to 5th place in class, and it's easy to get lonely on Daytona if if you make too many mistakes.
Yeah, the separation anxiety is real in this class when you're trying to make some of that fuel saving. You're trying to make sure you stay in the draft and the slipstream of the leader, because it's road racing, but it does share quite a lot of similarities with the plate racing, with the slipstreaming on the pure oval here, where you find yourself without a buddy to draft. You are giving away quite a bit of time and burning extra fuel.
Got a big run here at the front of the Mazda class. Graham D. Sanders has got all the draft. No, sorry, that's John D. Allen who had all the draft, but he decided to lift off, and now he's going to get freight trained by Robert Bodie, assuming he decides to go with it. Nope. Caution prevails. John D. Allen making a move up the inside. Oh, he gets tagged, but he manages to gather it back up. Ooh, that's some dangerous moves down into turn one. Man, it's really tough when you're in the middle of a pack like this, because there's all these guys trying to manage their speed, trying maybe not to overtake because they want to save the fuel, or don't want to end up losing too much time to the guy in front, because you got to remember, all 5 of these guys here in this pack, they're still more than 3 or 4 seconds behind the 2 leaders, DJ and Clifford. So even at this early phase, they're already looking towards that group ahead.
It was basically 2-minute 10-second flats out of your MX-5 runaway leaders. Sonny Canchin's last lap 2:10.9, so he needs to pick it up if he's going to be able to catch those two. But that'll be a very, very tough task, because we did see them bump drafting each other, and in that way, going faster than either of them would alone.
Yeah, well, and DJ we've seen him race a number of times, and he's really got some speed, like maybe even underrated speed. For sometimes the result that he manages to put up, because he's had a few unfortunate accidents over in the Champ Car Series. Man, we might need to go back, though, in that TCR field back into turn one, because I got to say, Max Wapples put on a move on Gio Romano, coming 3 wide into turn number 1 to take 4th place, and wow, that was a special thing. So we'll see if we can get that on the broadcast for you. But they're all still glued together at the front of TCR.
Did grab that replay potentially, but they did start, moving and shaking.
Yeah, and here you go. You can see him. He gets a big run from the inside line, dives late on the brakes outside of Gio Romano. Man, you love to see that kind of thing. Does it clean and around the outside. Speaking of, Robert Bodie's decided that he's had it with John D. Allen, or John D. Allen's decided he's had it with Robert Bodie and lets him by. Bodie takes the position easily, and Miguel follows him through. John D. Allen maybe deciding that this battle is best watched from behind. Up at the front of the pack there, we got Sonny Canchin putting 2 tires off through the S. It's easy to do in the exit, trying to conserve the momentum in the Mazda.
You're calling that 2 tires off. I'm taking a look that maybe it was closer to 4. He really did, just get in a little bit too hot, push a little wide, and lose his momentum. His last lap 2:10.4, still 2/10 slower than the leaders, and that's not going to help him on that time there. So they're still hopeful in this pursuing pack. I think first and second are doing a little bit too much at the moment.
Time to check back in with the TCR leaders, who are just catching the back end of the Mazda field, and they're having to take some evasive action. These Mazdas acting like pylons. And they've upgraded that motor since the old 1.6 liter, in those NAs, but it doesn't do much in the face of 300 horsepower from the TCR cars. That
off track for second. Got in too hot, slid it out wide. Let's put him all the way out on the grass, losing all the positions in the pack, and now he's going to have to pass a whole bunch of Mazdas again.
Oh, that's brutal, and that section of the grass in particular there is really bumpy. So it's really hard to get the car back on track once you gather it up and keep it off the wall. Looks like he's lost 4 or 5 seconds back to the pack, but that's the first casualty from that lead group of 5. We'll see if he's able to get his way back up there. And speaking of gaps, his teammate Mackenzie Corrins managed to take a gap going through that little section of Mazda there. We'll see if the Mazdas in the bus stop in front of him here hold him up this time. Another group of 3 just ahead of him.
And that's what I was talking about. There's a big difference between practicing your lines in a solo practice session versus he was taking the narrow entry to the corner there, trying to get down the inside of some of those cars, and then just didn't realize how much extra he'd have to slow down to make that corner, keep the car planted from the shallow entry.
Easy enough to do. Absolutely. Some more bump drafting going on in the TCR field, though. Watching Sam Devontier in that bright green car getting pushed by that bright green car of Max Wobbles, who decides at the end of all that pushing that, well, he wants the spot. And he makes his move into third place there at the line. Just slowly working his way up.
Keeps changing a little bit.
I'm going to say, if he keeps making moves like that, moving to turn number 1, I might have an in favorite. Sorry, HJ.
Still traffic for those TCR leaders. They're just coming through. That was Otis Adams Jr., who is 8th in class. So then still 7 more to go after that. It's going to be very, very interesting, both for this TCR lead pack and for the battle between the warring clans in the Mazda field as well, where they catch them, how that plays out.
Yeah, and DJ at the front of the Mazda field has gotten himself a little bit of separation, and then of course the draft is bringing them back together. But it'll be interesting to see if when the TCRs come through, when it happens, and if Clifford Evan is able to hold on the back. He didn't have quite the speed that DJ did, about 3/10 off in qualifying, but draft more than makes up for that around Daytona. These TCR cars are coming up on them though. Looks like they're going to catch them. At best on the tri-oval, and at worst maybe going into turn 1. Of course, you can reverse those if you're not the driver. It'll be great to watch them try and make a move around the leaders of the Mazda field for us.
Exactly. I think both parties would much rather it happens on the oval, but you catch some of those cars in the infield, it can be tricky. Here goes Mackenzie Corrance well around the outside of some of the bumping Mazdas. Corrance is going to get through before turn 1, but Max Wobbles changing lanes. Is he out of control? He is out of control, and he tags one of the geodesic Mazdas.
They're too wide, and Wobbles is still going for it. Boy, oh boy. Gio looks like he's going to make the cleanest move, though. 3 wide into that first horseshoe, sweeps around the outside. Wobbles still boxed in. He's got 3 Mazdas all around him. He's got to be wondering where they all came from. Living up to his name.
They're little cars, but when they're too wide, it's still so difficult to get around him, and he got boxed into the wrong position. So that starts to break up some of the lead pack. Well, for both classes. That's not how they wanted it to go down.
Yeah, that's really paying off for Mackenzie and Matthew at the front of TCR, who've got a few seconds gap now, back to Wobbles and Gio, who are nose to tail. We'll see if maybe they can do a little bit of teamwork and push each other back up to the front. It seemed like Gio was content to stay behind, but once things started stacking up there, he started to thread the needle and found some room on the left-hand side after that little drama from Wobbles there. And sure enough, it looks like Wobbles going to push him down the back straightaway here. So we'll see. We'll see. Early separation in that TCR field.
Yeah, really through 3 seconds and more between the first 2 and then these 3 that we watch.
And of course, DJ and Clifford, the rich get richer, driving away from the field, not a problem in the world. And oh yeah, all the TCR cars are going to pass them on the banking. Must be nice. Must be nice.
Must be nice. Exactly. So, yeah, interesting implications for both of those classes, our fastest and our slowest class. What about the in-between?
I'm just checking in on the Mustangs here, and Austin Cobb still got the lead with about a 1 second gap back to Jeff and Alex. Alex has been pretty diligent about pushing Jeff, perhaps to Jeff's chagrin, because I know that Jeff's got the mind on him to be thinking about the big picture here and the fuel saving that he'd like to be doing. Either way, both of them, all 3 of them at the front of that field, I'm sure, are looking down the road to the first of the Mazdas that they're going to be coming up on probably in the next lap and a half here, not that big of a gap. Meanwhile, Travis Floyd is looking on at the 3 second gap he's got from 4th place up to Alex Albert, his teammate. that mistake earlier on seems to have cost him, and I believe he was running a slightly different version of the setup. Perhaps he's getting caught by some understeer through the bus stop, and he's not able to find quite the same pace that Alex and Jeff are.
One thing that's interesting is while the TCR car is faster across a lap than the Ford Mustang, on the banking down the straights, they both reach about the same top speed. So when the Mustangs come to catch and pass the Mazdas, they're probably actually going to have an easier time of it because they're the same speed through the corners and then just as fast as the TCR cars on the banking. So keep in mind that with the rumbling V8 they've got and unsophisticated suspension, the Ford Mustangs are pretty handy in a straight line, even if their braking distances are a bit longer than a TCR car.
It's very sophisticated if you're on a drag strip. But just ahead of this Mustang field, I'm seeing Mansour Ibrahim and the other car at the front there. That's Austin Tucker battling. They were too wide heading into this second international horseshoe. We'll see. It looks like that battle's maybe calming down a bit, and they might give these Mustangs an easier time through the field. Easily powering past them, though.
Twice as many cylinders, more than twice the displacement, I think, is the numbers that you can't argue with. What is that chopping and changing lanes? I don't think they were expecting that. That was something. Very
confident. Going below the yellow line, though, I don't know how I feel about that. Just kidding. We're not in NASCAR here, but yeah, real clean. But looks like Travis didn't lose anything through that exchange. So the top three in Mustang stay glued together. And keep close enough. Yeah, jumping back to the TCR field, it looks like Matthew Warner's snuck ahead of Mackenzie Corrins. I'm going to go backwards and see if I can figure out when that would have taken place. Those two have been sort of real close. And it looks like just a pretty straightforward pass on the back straight. Nice run from Matthew onto NASCAR 1 and 2 and gets the run into the bus stop, clears them easily before the braking zone. Might even have gotten a little bit of help from Mackenzie there, deciding that, too early to be contesting that kind of thing into the battle or into the bus stop there. And Gio had a little bit of an off on the exit of turn 1 that same lap, which explains some of the 1 and I'd say it's about a 2.5 second gap that they've got now. Either way, it looks like these TCRs are going to catch up to another little group of cars ahead of them. I think those are oh no, sorry, I'm getting that wrong. That is Matthew Warner and Mackenzie Corrins ahead in a pack of 2 with Max Wobbles. How could I forget him? And Sam Devantier glued together in bump drafting with Gio looking on all alone. No dance partner for him. About a 1.5 seconds behind those guys. So spreading now at the front of the field after the first half an hour of this race was dominated by those two being glued together. Those 5 being glued together. Haynes, what are you looking at? Sure enough, it looks like Haynes is looking at the countryside in Australia because he is not here. I'm looking at the front of the Mazda field, though. Sonny Catch and John D. Allen seem to be swapping position. John's going to take the lead this time by. Unless Sonny decides to make a move here to the outside. Oh, he goes real wide. Is this a line? Okay, maybe this is his line. But that's a real wide entry into turn number 1. Looks like it all shakes out pretty equally in the end, though. Let's see what we got through the field here. I'm watching the Mustangs right now. Kyle Heyer is following Daniel Rash and Jorge Saligo, who are going too wide into turn number 1 right now. Always a risky proposition in any vehicle. Such a committed corner. But it looks like Jorge is going to get the good half of that. Tuck himself back in the line, and Kyle's going to give him some room too. But real good battle going on here for what looks to be about 5th place in the Mustang field. the real trick with the Mustangs out here is that, you know, it's not that hard to set one fast lap in the Mustang, but managing the tires, and in particular managing the fronts, believe it or not, on these cars is a real issue the further you get into the stint. Both these Mustangs and the Mazdas are equipped with ABS that's simulated on the sim, and it can be a real issue if you're digging into the ABS every single time you go in the corner. It just really superheats the tires. And so part of the reason that we're seeing such a big gap, this group being almost 10 seconds off the leader, is the management of that ABS, because it's really, really easy to cook your tires. Looks like things are cooling off in that battle, though, so we'll keep on searching around the field, see if we can find somewhere else for you to look. Heading back to the lead of the race. We've still got Matthew Warner out front, looking a little bit wiggly in that bump, or in that braking zone, doing his best Max Wobbles impression. Heading out of the second horseshoe. Now, hard to say if Mackenzie clearly got overtaken pretty easily by Matthew on just this section of the track that we're heading into here, but hard to say if that was a deliberate move, you know, maybe recognizing that he wanted to save some fuel at this point, or if that was just, situation. Matthew getting that better run and Mackenzie not really having an option. But either way, that part of the field looking pretty stable. Max Wobbles has managed to get back past Sam Devontier after letting him by during the last lap. And all three of them, including Gio, are still together. And Nathan Block, our missing leader, is still a little bit MIA. He lost, it looks like, in the end, about 6.5 seconds from that little excursion on the second international horseshoe that he hasn't been able to make up just yet. But he is now leading Little Train with a few guys. Benjamin Morton hanging off the back and William Calhoun right behind him. I bet you if I was in his car, I'd be waving my hands around looking for a draft as hard as I can. And sure enough, he's going to get it. William pushing him down the straightaway, though. It might be too late getting close to the rev limiter at this point. Haynes, did I hear you take a seat?
I did. I'm just getting back in. I do hope you have a copy.
Oh, yeah, I got you loud and clear. What, the kangaroos come and shake up your internet connection or something?
Well, a wombat burrowed through my fiber, something like that. I don't know.
Thanks for splicing it so quick. That's really good of you. But looks like the leaders of the TCR field are having to contend with a teeny tiny bit of traffic. Bo Rigger, after some early issues, is still lapping in that Mazda, though towards the back of the field. May have had to take an early stop for some damage, judging by how far off he is, despite having a lot of pace in qualifying. And actually, Jeff Tyler and Alex Albert are having some fun. Jeff Tyler actually managed to get past Austin Cobb for the lead of the race. We'll have to go back and figure out how that just happened.
Yeah, back to third now. I wonder if that had anything to do with some of this traffic, or if the HJ coloured guys just decided now is the time to get on and get after it.
Yeah, I'm going back, man. Apparently I was looking at completely the wrong fields, because this must have happened almost 2.5 laps ago at this point. Either way, Austin
Three
Cobb.
very competitive classes to keep our eyes on. It does happen from time to time.
Yeah. And only my two little eyes. I got no chance. But yeah, sure enough, Jeff Tyler holding down the lead, and Alex Albert still lurking in second place. And, you know, if I was going to put my money on someone at this point, I got to imagine Alex has saved a boatload of fuel 35 minutes into this race, hanging out behind Jeff. And Jeff is no slouch in the driver's seat, so he's been putting down some real quick laps. Either way, Cobb suddenly dropping off the pace, not just behind him, but even losing some car lengths heading onto the back straight there.
Any sign of damage on the third place car?
Not seeing any looking around it, but I gotta wonder. He did run alone, and he did run alone and fast for a long time. So maybe early on he was thinking that he could make the two-stop, half a second a lap kind of strategy first, and the pace of Alex and Jeff has just convinced him that he needs to, really get serious about the fuel saving. So he's sort of sorting that out. Either way, this group of three is coming up on a pair of Mazdas that were too wide just a second ago. We'll see if they go back to being too wide when these Mustangs decide to come by.
Plenty of room on the banking. It's in the infield that it becomes a little trickier. 3 wide is passable and achievable on the banking. But here, into turn 1.
Ooh. Jeff using his karting skills there, sliding that thing pretty sideways as they head past John D. Allen, who's currently running 3rd place. So this is actually 3rd place and 4th place. John D. Allen and Sony Canchin in the Miata field, and John is not giving Jeff any room, none at all. They make contact on the exit of the corner there. Luckily, no permanent damage by the looks of things, but Jeff has a long memory for that sort of thing, so we'll see if that boils up again later.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. The cornering speed, especially in some of the slower corners or even the medium speed corners, very, very similar between the Mustang and the Mazda, unlike the TCR with its advanced aerodynamics and its bigger slick tires, has a little bit more cornering speed as well as a little bit more straight line speed than the Mazdas. For the Mustangs, it's just all in that engine.
Not to mention that superior front wheel drive layout, for the TCRs. That's bound to give them a little bit of advantage in the corner. Shout out to all my HJ Mazda drivers. I do see a car off, though. That looks like Mansur Ibrahim. And he has just taken a bit of a ride into the first international horseshoe. Just got it a little bit late on the brakes, maybe distracted by some of the stuff going on in front of him. Bounces off that advanced safer barrier on the exit of turn number 1 there. And looks like the car's pretty straight. No serious damage from what I can tell, bent up hood. Hopefully the alignment's still good. But he's been having a pretty quiet race, running towards the back half of the Mazda field. And now he's a bit of a pylon for some of these TCR cars that are coming by. Pretty important to keep your car straight here, with all this banking.
Yeah, there are other tracks where you can lose 1 or 2 kilometers an hour of straight line speed and, deal with it and work your way around it. But here, that'll be costing you fuel consumption. It'll mean anyone who's in the same pack as you is very easily able to gobble you up when push comes to shove.
Leaders of the Mustang class now coming up on the leaders of the Miata class. And Jeff, Alex, and DJ at the head of the Miata class have all had a lot of experience racing together in the Champ Car Series. So it'll be interesting to see how these old rivals handle each other as they catch up.
Very well, might just make it wait until the banking about the distance they are back here. They're not going to get down the inside of turn 6. So we're going to be just onto the banking here, probably how everyone wanted it. Especially if you're those leading two in the Mazda class who just don't want to take any risk or lose any time being lapped.
Yeah, absolutely. Really does seem apparent, though. I noticed one of our eagle-eyed team members spotted that they had smoothed out the bumps on the exit onto NASCAR here, and it really does seem to have made a big difference. All the cars look like they're handling a lot more smoothly through that section of the track. I remember that was one of the big challenges around here.
I think it does allow you to be a lot more smooth there. You were otherwise sort of staying a little wide of the apex, having to be a bit more cautious picking up the throttle, whereas now it's a bit more like any other corner. You can carry a bit more speed in there, more reliably pick up the throttle as well.
Yeah, and it did mean that in the past there was kind of that sneaky inside line that you could do once in a while. I wonder if that thing still works, so we'll have to wait a little bit later in the race, I imagine, to see someone trying to make a move onto the oval like that. But interesting things to think about, They don't just have evolving track states in iRacing, they have evolving track geometry too.
How close did you want it for your top three in the Mustang class? No one wanted to pass anyone. There were 3 Mustangs in 3 Mustang lengths. Jeff Tyler still leading, and then Alex Albert not wanting to pass him. And then I think I read into what you said earlier, because it looks like Austin Cobb is very happy to just suck up that double draft, coast it into all of the corners, try to get himself back on the same strategy that he thinks these two are following.
And you being, the fuel whisperer that you are, I trust your analysis on that one. So, be interesting to see how the fuel ends up shaking out. Front end of the TCR field is going to be coming back through some Mazdas here, though. I've got Gio Max and Gio Wobbles and Sam all heading towards a few of the leading Mazdas, including Clifford just up ahead of them, I believe. No, not Clifford at all. I lied completely. That's Paulo Coimbra and Jack Andrick just ahead of them. But it looks like they decided to be a little bit cautious heading into second international horseshoe there. Very Sam-like, very unlike Max, so I expect that all 3 of them will be by on this next corner. Oh, and Gio has compromised a little bit, so does Max.
Won't matter too much for Gio, because then he'll again immediately pick up the double draft off the 2 in front. So no real loss for him. It's all about, I think, then, so long as you don't lose touch with the guy in front, it's all about how fast the first one is able to get through the traffic for, what the speed is like for your overall pack. Because look at how massive the closing speed is there for Max Wobbles.
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
They got to take the air dams off of these things.
I got to cut loose the parachute off the back.
That too. Speaking of cars that are close together, Jeff, Alex, and Austin Cobb at the front of the Mustang field were nose to tail across the line that time. I think there was like just a few tenths of a second between them, but if that. But
it's a little bit of fuel saving a foot there in the Mustang top 3, but they are still. Well, they pulled away from Travis Floyd, but actually, in the last lap, Daniel Rash, Kyle Heyer, and Mike Burnett were actually a little bit quicker, despite being 11 seconds back.
I suspect that the traffic they're currently dealing with probably had something to do with that, as they're muscling their way around the leaders in Miatas this time. And this time it's actually the leaders, I was right. But sure enough, they're forcing Clifford and DJ both to go wide as they make their way through. But those two look like they'll stay in contact with each other as this thing all filters out. The real big loser in all this is probably Mike Burnett, who's being forced to take the wide line with no draft as he ducks and weaves around DJ and looks forlornly at the 2 cars ahead of him that are currently on the screen.
I think he'll be fine. I think he'll keep with them, especially here into the bus stop. He can throw it in pretty deep, but so does the driver in front.
Yeah, that was a real nice line from Daniel Rash there that time. He looked like he was right on the limit and just clipping those slowdowns that are lurking behind the curbs there.
Yeah, that's a big no-no, is picking up any of the slowdowns here at Daytona, because then you have to roll out of the throttle in these very, very high-speed places on the banking.
Yeah, and that'll lose you tenths all the way down the straightaway. I'm jumping back in with Wobbles and Sam Devontier here at the front of the TCR field as they pass some lapped Miata traffic. 2 of them, looks like they might be able to get clear of it all as they head into turn number 1, but I am seeing a Mustang just ahead of that, and then another few cars ahead of that. So should be a busy lap for them through the infield. Max giving a real solid shove to Sam that time across the line. No interest in fuel saving from him. Gio forced to run a little bit wide because of that geodesic themed Graham Sanders driven car, but makes a nice clean move. And yeah, sure enough, as predicted, they're coming up on the Mustang, the Oreo-sponsored Mustang of Joshua Powell and Mansur Ibrahim, who we caught earlier taking a little excursion out to the tire barrier. He's gone back into the pits, and it looks like he must have had some tire damage. He'll be going around the outside, ooh, and he gets real close to the dirt, but he manages to hold it. And Sam gets real close. Oh boy, all kinds of drama. This is not the kind of calm passing you're hoping for. Max forced to get out of it, and Geo2 on the exit. And you can tell not a lot of acceleration difference between these cars. Max, never afraid of a challenge, decides to make a move on Sam. That's going to cost him a few tenths, but I'm sure that the vacuum cleaner suction of that car in front of him is going to pull him back up. So nothing wagered, nothing gained, and that seems to be the philosophy of Max there.
I mean, yeah, this is where it starts to get a bit messy, isn't it? When the TCR cars are catching the Mustangs, while the Mustangs are catching the Mazdas, and finally, sort of all three of the classes get mixed and mingled together for the first time, and they really feel the difference of where the cars make their speed and what the closing speeds are like.
Yeah, absolutely. Just switched over to it and missed it again, but we're going to have to get on board with these Mustangs, these top three Mustangs, as they head across the start-finish line one of these times, because lap after lap, they're just glued to each other. 1/10 and a half separating them across the line that time, and yeah, they've really been pushing it.
The number on the fuel save in this class is about 2 gallons versus going flat out in clean air. They've got to save that much. Well, they're in a very nice slipstream. They're rolling out of the throttle in some places. I very much think that they'll be able to make that number the way they're going here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. Like, Jeff hasn't given up his position a single time yet, and so I'm curious to see how much he's going to pay for it at the stop. Got to figure if they're doing a single stop, it'll be in about 25 minutes here, 30 maybe, depending on how far they've been able to stretch that fuel.
Yeah, I think they'll be looking at pretty well the halfway point, which would be the 1 hour 12 to go. So yeah, still maybe more to 20-25 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone we see in before that, though, that's a very telltale sign that they've been a bit of a lead foot chewing through that fuel needle.
Yeah, and at the pointy end of the field, I got to think, oh, Alex decides he's finally going to make a move. And, I was wondering, because, Jeff's been leading. I've been wondering if he was either, sort of lifting in the straightaways because they were so close every time past the line, or if there was something else going on there. So either that's some team orders and Alex saying, hey, I'll tow you for a while, or that's Jeff saying, I've had enough. And
did you see any hint of Austin Cobb trying to follow through and get into second place? I don't think I saw any desire for him to follow in Alex's wheel tracks in that maneuver.
Yeah, not one bit. Speaking of following in the wheel tracks, Max Wobbles has now dropped back to 5th place after spending a good chunk of time up in 3rd place in the TCR category there. He pushed Gio Romano across the line that time, and they're coming up on the leaders of the Mazda class again here in that little group. Those Mazdas now 2, probably 3 laps down next time across the line. So that pace differential, really being showed off between these cars. It would be a good time to see these guys on track in real life together. Gotta think. Ooh, Gio runs it a little bit wide. It looks like he'll get a nice run off the exit here, and Sam really had to compromise at that time through. Yeah, but no opportunity for overtaking when you're already too wide with the Miata.
Ooh, yeah, they parked it on the apex ever so noticeably there.
The reason I called attention to this battle is because you remember Nathan Block? Well, if you just zoom out a little bit more and take one click back, he's right there in 6th place, now chasing Max Wobbles and the gang, and I'd say he's definitely within range of the draft. So after that little drama for him earlier, he is back into this second group, and still has a few more seconds to go, about 7-8 seconds up the road if he wants to catch the leaders where he was before, but he's definitely got the pace to make some time on these guys. And if he can manage to fuel save, maybe he's got a shot to make up some of that 7-8 seconds he's got up to Matthew and Mackenzie there. So don't count him out just yet. He's had some really good pace these last little while here.
So there's Devontier in third, getting pushed by Romano in fourth. Max wobbles with a big head of steam in fifth, goes up high. He has favored this move around the outside. Romano's going to let him have it, but Devontier is not. William Calhoun joined the party.
Man, and they were all wiggling all the way around that corner. That was a fun one to watch. These guys are really, really pushing it right now.
Too wide through the first horseshoe. Narrow line for Wobbles, wide line for Romano, and they can keep this up for the moment, but if it goes on too long, are they going to let Devontier skip away? Max Wobbles certainly not shy at all. No stranger to trying to make some aggressive moves in the pack here. Here comes Nathan Block, who might look for one. Is he looking to the inside there? No, he falls back in line. So very interesting in TCR at the moment.
Well, and I can't help but notice, I think they're losing time doing all this battling because William Calhoun now, who was in 7th place, and in that little group that Nathan Block joined, well, he's gotten pulled up, and not far behind him is Benjamin Morton. Not making up a ton of time, but a few tenths here and there in that battle. So things at the front end in the top 5 of this TCR class, they are kind of starting to get a little bit spicy here. As we head to what I have to think, these things are going to be a 2-stopper, did we figure, or these are 1-stopper?
Easy 1-stopper for the TCR class. They could probably pit now and get to the end. Even at Daytona fuel consumption levels, I think they can get close to an hour 40 to their tank of fuel.
And as they overtake this Mustang being driven by Jorge Saligo, you can really tell what you were talking about earlier, that the TCR cars really don't have that much in the way of top speed over these Mustangs. But as we watch William Calhoun come around, Jorge here, they're going to kill him in the corners, I got to think.
Yeah, typically they do. And the drive off as well is pretty good. The gearbox is one thing that certainly helps with the acceleration, at least initially down the straights, is you've kind of got 5 usable gears in the H pattern for the Mustang, but it's 6 sequential gears that you can bang up and down very easily in the Audi TCR. So certainly that point where they've straightened off the exit of the corner and they started putting power down, then the TCR car can quickly flick through the gears and keep giving its best power all the way, as the Mustang maybe bogs down a little bit on each shift.
Yeah, double clutching it every time is a real pain in the Mustang, you gotta say, but looking at the front of the TCR field right now, Matthew Warner and Mackenzie Corrins are going to come up on this group of Mustangs that includes Daniel Rash, Travis Floyd, Kyle Harrer, Mike Burnett. That's about, I think, 4th place down to 7th place in class. And it looks like they're going to catch them somewhere between the bus stop here that they're just entering and the tri-oval. Be interesting to see. I think the way the timing works out, the group that we're currently looking at of TCR cars, that's the Gio, Sam Devontier, Max Wobbles gang. I think they're going to catch this group of Mustangs, all 4 of them who are battling for position. They're going to catch them as they head down into turn 1. And even Matthew Warner might have a hard time getting around these Mustangs in a draft. Ooh, he should have just enough time. Yeah, Matthew having to work real hard around the outside. Travis not giving him an inch. Keeping it clean.
Train just, held firm to the inside and said, TCR guys, it's your job. And there was nothing erratic from any of the Mustangs. They all stayed in line. They all held their place in their little 4-car battle here, but he didn't give any real assistance as our 2 TCR leaders tried to come through.
Okay. These Mustangs are still glued together, so we might, despite my terrible estimation skills, we might get the TCR overtake exchange that I was kind of hinting at, but I think it'll be a lap later than I expected. And we do still have some pretty significant battling going on. Max Wobbles has made up a spot, passing Gio, and Nathan Block has as well. Gio down 2 spots now into 5th place into 6th place after starting lap in 5th, or 4th rather. And Max actually going to get the spot from Sam Devantier, who's opted for the outside line. I wonder if he's feeling a little bit of pressure. Maybe he wants to have a slightly shorter stop at the next fill here.
Means Block is going to get another position as well, as they all fall back into single file before the bus stop. And now it's Wobbles leading from Block 2nd, Devantier back into 3rd. So anyone from TCR could pit now and get to the end if they wanted out of this traffic, but I don't think they're going to want to pit until everyone in front of them pits, because it's just so beneficial to have this slipstream. You see, once they get into 5th gear, how much pace Block starts to pick up, though. I think he's rolled out of the throttle an itty bit. Is he looking for it around the outside of Max Wobbles, who I think of the drivers in this pack is the driver least likely to roll over and fall back in line?
Yeah, Wobbles seems to like leading from the front. And doesn't give Nathan much room there, but at the same time, it doesn't look like Sam Devantier and Gio really want that. Both of them short shifting on their way out of the corner that time, out of turn 1. And looking ahead of them, that group of Mustangs that I mentioned is now getting real close on the horizon. We've got them making their way past some Miatas. That's Scott Whitehouse in the yellow and blue, green, yellow, and blue livery car. And they're also making their way past Austin Tucker. So Miatas, Mustangs, and TCRs, oh my, it's going to be real busy here in a second.
Yeah, it is. Basically, half of the field is in the infield between the horseshoes at the minute, or coming back onto the banking. So for that TCR pack, some of the Mustang pack, it's all about to kick off. 3 classes, 3 wide, feeding back onto the banking from the TCR pack.
And Mike Burnett wanted to drop down to the inside, but looked in his mirror and saw that TCR of Sam Devantier coming up on the inside of him and thought better of it. And now again, 3 wide, 3 classes, just like he called before, as William Calhoun clears him. And this TCR group here again is catching those Mustangs through the bus stop. But if I was the last guy in this TCR train, ooh, Max Wobbles puts a big block on Nathan Block. Oh, man. I swear that wasn't on purpose, but puts a big block on Nathan Block. And they're going to be 2 wide with these Mustangs as they go across the stripe, and maybe as they head down into turn 1. Travis Floyd leading this train. The Mustangs leading Daniel Rash and Kyle Heyer. 2 wide at the breaking point into turn number 1. This will be spicy.
Almost looking like a little bit of a repeat where the previous cars held their line. Block gets to the rear quarter of Wobbles, and it's really trying to push him along to get down the inside of the first horseshoe. This is going to help the TCRs get past the Mustangs, but Wobbles, what's he playing at here? Was he not confident he was going to get left the lane to the inside?
I think it was maybe a little bit of that, maybe a little bit of rear brake bias catching him out. He kind of caught it, looked like a little bit. They're 2 wide through the kink here, though. That could be real dangerous. Looks like everyone's going to get through there. William Calhoun making a move up the inside of Kyle Heyer, and all of them on the inside of Travis Floyd. Feels bad to be on the outside in a moment like this, but of course it switches back for the next corner, so they'll be trying to make the move around the outside. Travis Floyd again, 2 wide. William Calhoun looking. And they're all clear, well executed by the whole group there.
This is the speed difference between these 2 classes. It's only about 4 seconds a lap, which is very similar to the pace difference, for example, between GTE and GT3. Our fastest lap in TCR has been a 1:58. Our fastest lap in Mustang has been a 2:02. And you kind of see this, that the pace advantage the TCRs have got, it's there, but it's not really at the very end of the straights, it's more evenly spread, into the braking zones, into the traction. There's no one place that they are lightning faster than a Mustang.
Yeah, absolutely. For those wondering, the Mustang field has more or less calmed down. Alex Albert's still leading after Jeff Tyler gave him that spot a while ago. And Austin Cobb is still in third place, just fuel saving along. So we watched those TCR cars eat up that little group of Mustangs we have running fourth through to 8th place, it looks like. And they're going to be coming up in the next few laps, I got to imagine, onto these Mustangs that are 1, 2, and 3. And Max Wobbles and Nathan Block are still going at it as I talk. Too wide again into turn number 1, but Wobbles holds the spot and Nathan Block is caught looking on. I gotta imagine that in his head, he's not too worried about this group. He's really thinking about the gang ahead, because Matthew Warner and Mackenzie Corrins have now made it to 11 seconds clear of the group battling for 3rd through 7th place in TCR. So good battle here, but the real battle out at the front is kind of getting away from these guys, almost at the halfway point in this roar before the 24.
Yeah, if the gap was only 3 or 4 seconds, knowing how slow the TCR cars fill the fuel, you could say, oh, these guys in the trailing pack are probably saving more fuel. Come pit stops, they might be able to jump it back up. But once it gets out to 11 or 12 seconds, really it looks like Warner and Corrins has race to lose in TCR at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wobbles and Devontae and Block. Well, Block's going too wide as they go into the bus stop here, and that might get a little bit dangerous here, because just ahead of them they have a Miata. That's Jack Andrek, and Nathan Block has to lock up 2 tires on the way in. Manages to save it. And actually, I think that Andrek's just taken a slowdown there, so he'll be getting out of the way real fast of these guys. But it looks like our TCR field is going to catch, as predicted, those leaders in the Mustang class shortly here.
I really feel like this train of TCR cars would go faster with Block as the leader, but Wobbles doesn't want to give it up. He's thinking about, I want to stand on the podium, not thinking about, are we going to be able to catch first and second? Because once again, they are too wide. Once again, Wobbles is only giving away the outside line to Block. Once again, Wobbles in very hot. The 2 touch. And I think this is going to send them both backwards now. The leader of the pack is going to be Sam Devontier.
And Gio Bernard was able to steal... Gio Bernard. We're talking football now. Giovanni Romano was able to take a spot away from Nathan Block too, so a costly maneuver there, but a wobble from Wobbles sends Nathan Block wide and costs them both a position. Oh, and did I mention those Mustangs? They're going to catch them here in this next horseshoe.
Yeah, they're lucky they can... Whoa, here's Block trying to grab another one down the inside of Romano. He wants that spot back. Romano, ever the gentleman, will let them have that. But yes, indeed, your pack leader, Devontier, is just going to wait for the banking to try to swallow up the 3 Mustang leaders. Is he close enough to get by all 3 of them before the bus stop? I say yes, but is the tail of the train able to get around all of them? That is what we are about to find out on NASCAR 1 and 2, heading around towards the bus stop.
Yeah, this is going to get real complex real fast. Too wide at the front end of this.
Cobb's looking at an interesting maneuver here. They go 3 wide, block down the inside. Cobb went back onto the racing line. Now that is going to block out Romano and Calhoun as Devontier and Wobbles made it through ahead, and Block got in the middle of the Mustangs.
Gio got a really bad run off that time. William Calhoun's going to take advantage of pushing him 3 wide and shooting the middle. Maybe getting a little bit of side draft help from Austin Cobb and Jeff Tyler on the way by. And meanwhile, at the front of that group, it looks like Alex Albert's been able to form a little breakaway. So we'll see. Maybe these Mustangs can get enough draft off the TCRs, but maybe not. This could be the moment.
Cobb did have to go through the bus stop with the TCR between him and the Mustang leaders, and now there's more traffic making it more difficult. They're catching a bunch of loose Mazdas. I think Cobb is safely not going to get separated from Jeff Tyler.
And Alex is having to take a real narrow inside line here. Ooh, we got a little tight at the front there for a second, but that narrow inside line is going to cost him a lot of speed on the exit, and you got to think that that's going to give up the advantage that he had managed to gain on those guys behind him. So no guarantee that there will be separation here by the time this all shakes out. You can really see those pretty HJ liveries, though, spread across two of the three classes here. Don't believe there's any drivers in the Mazda class this time around for the war. That is HJ drivers in the Mazda class.
It's getting complicated in the trailing Mustang pack, though, being led by Daniel Rash, because Kelly Stoops from TCR has rejoined the race in the middle of them for position. So that might be hurting Mike Burnett a little bit. Now he's going to get the speed going up high for Kelly Stoops, but is there... Well, they've made their pit stop already, but is there still yet damage on that car potentially? Because I thought he'd get around and get ahead of these guys a little quicker than this. He was patient through the infield. Now he's going to get his nose ahead for the bus stop.
Well, and it is possible that he's running a little bit more downforce than some of these guys up at the front are, because those cars at the front are really, really on edge. Speaking of up at the front, Sam Devantier is in third place still after all that drama we saw before, being followed closely by Max Wobbles and by a feisty-looking Nathan Block on the outside, who looks like he wants to make a move. And while Wobbles would not have that, I wonder if Devantier holds back. No opportunity. Managed to get enough of a draft and a push there that they're going to be, all three of them, staying in position as they head through turn one.
Fuses have been a bit short already in this race between Devantier and Wobbles. I think Devantier might, let the very rapid Nathan Block lead the train, but I don't think he actually wants to give away the lead to Wobbles. They've had that one as the status of the pack for a while, and maybe it didn't help them elevate forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing a couple drivers disconnect here, and I am seeing a few blinks. I'm wondering if there's maybe some server instability going on. I'm following.
Are you seeing two names that weren't drivers? They were spectators.
That's entirely possible, but I am seeing some blinking here. I'm watching Laurie Forsey and Sven Kupfer a little bit deeper down in the TCR field. They're about to have their chance to go past some of these Mustangs that we were just talking about, though, and we're too wide until Laurie took about the latest braking point you could possibly imagine into turn one, tossed the car sideways, slammed on the throttle, and got it pointed back the right way. Gotta respect the guy who's that brave, or the guy who's that brave, making a move like that into turn number one. So props to that, and I'm interested to see what that kind of strategy is going to look like as we get going into the bus stop here, as he will be going by that Daniel Rash, Travis Floyd, Mike Burnett kind of group. They'll be catching up to them, I got to think, this time through the tri-oval and maybe down into turn one. We've got one car down. I think that is Daniel Rash who's opted to go to the bottom there. Travis Floyd makes a move at the front of this pack of Mustangs ahead of them. And I got to think, yeah, Rash has a slowdown this time, so he's lifting, which is going to make this even more complex for those TCR cars that are about to come by. Laurie Forsey on the outside here, driving by. And he's definitely not going to get clear by the start-finish line. Let's see what he can do. Last time by, he overshot the braking point by about 20 feet. This time he gets it a lot better, but it's hard to make that move around the outside.
He's going to get left the room by Rash. That'll let him get one or two positions here. And the next two is the struggle for Forsey.
Ooh, and Sven Kupfer put two tires off on the exit of the S there. Got him a little bit offline on the entry into the turn, which I think in turn may have spooked Daniel Rash, who's now losing a position to Mike Burnett behind them. But just ahead, Laurie Forsey going too wide through the kink. Oh, they managed to make it work. Both guys lifting responsibly. Travis Floyd getting a little breakaway here, but Laurie not getting the position easily from Kyle Heyer. And now Sven Kupfer might be a factor if they keep on battling like this. Oh, sure enough, the front wheel drive gets a drag off the corner. And Laurie now eyes ahead onto Travis Floyd.
TCR cars actually seem to do pretty well going around the outside because it gives them the wider arc that it asks less of the front tires on corner exit, and then, you know, maybe lets them carry a bit more speed, get the throttle open a little bit more smoothly. So, you know, maybe you'd want to definitely get down the inside if you were a Mustang, but for the TCR cars, they maybe prefer the more sweeping line around the outside.
Yeah, that does make a bunch of sense. I mean, these cars, they got those big fat front tires, but, you know, a lot of work being done by them, especially if you decide to drive them a little hard, or maybe you're running the brake bias a little further forward to keep them safe. So, speaking of safety, Max Wobbles and Sam Devontae are going at it again into turn number 1 with Nathan Block close behind. Still losing time, though, this whole group, got to be said. Now up to 13 seconds, and Nathan Block, oh boy, he got it all kinds out of shape on the way into that turn. Managed to gather back up and only tap Max Wobbles a little bit. But I think he's starting to get a little bit frustrated trying to find his way around. Gio Romano has perhaps wisely backed off of this battle. And all 4 of them are about to come up on John D'Allen and Sonny Canchin, who are still running 3rd and 4th in the Mazda class. We haven't checked in on in a while. And it does bear mentioning that there's been a little move at the front of the Mazda field. Clifford Eben is leading DJ Alessandrini, who had led for much of the race up to this point, I believe the entire race. So will be interesting to see what that
I'm led to believe
there.
Alessandrini might have had a little bit of trouble with the traffic, but for the first time, pit lane is lighting up, and it's with Ford Mustangs. Travis Floyd's had to pit a lap earlier than Cobb and Albert, and Daniel Rash and Aaron Thacker on the lane as well for the Ford Mustangs. So that's 40.7 seconds for Floyd, 40.3 for Rash. Looks like that's about how long the pit stops are going to be, and they're close on pit exit.
Yeah, and those were both 4-tire stops, which makes a lot of sense in this car in particular. Will be interesting to see if there is any tire strategy to be had today.
Don't think so.
Optimal might just be putting fresh rubber on.
They're taking a full tank of fuel. They get a set of tires. That's how it goes for the Ford Mustang. Absolutely no penalty to taking tires. I think you'd be a fool not to.
Well, we've had foolish drivers in our races before, but nonetheless. That is the first of our Mustangs to pit. Our leaders are coming up on pit entry. Austin Cobb leading, Alex Albert in second, which is a shift in positions. Jeff Tyler lagging behind them. None of the 3 will opt for pit lane, so Travis Floyd at least 2 laps short on fuel. That's got to be a real dagger for him.
Yeah, that's tough. Remember, he had all of that free running in the first stint before it eventually got caught by the others. My calculations here say 34 laps done by the Mustangs, maybe 35, 36 to go. And of course, we're definitely before the halfway point time-wise in the race. That's still about a minute and a half, 2 minutes away. So basically a whole lap. So this is on strategy, on target for Cobb, Albert, and Tyler, but everyone else like Burnett and higher on the lane right now, they are, unfortunately, the way it's going, headed for Splash and Dash Town.
Yeah, and I gotta wonder, Daniel Rash and Travis Floyd are right on the same part of the track. They both pit, Thacker pit. Yeah, so I don't think any of the Mustangs, other than the top 3, are on track to make it on fuel. And it is interesting to see Cobb pulling away from the front of that pack a little bit. I wonder how much fuel he was able to save. We'll see. Heading towards the bus stop again this time. This will be a critical moment in this Mustangs race, in all the Mustangs races, if any of them can
Kelly
make that
Stoops,
happen.
Whose full position has slotted his way between Alex Albert and Jeff Tyler. So probably not the worst for Jeff, because then he'll be picking up the slipstream off the TCR instead of the Mustang, and he'll be dropped. So he's dropping back quite a bit. I think they're going to be pitting in this lap. Jeff Tyler realizes he's on fumes at the minute. Cobb leads the Mustang class. As he comes towards pit in, he's facing towards it. Alex Albert on the yellow line, now looking towards pit entry. and Jeff Tyler, assume is going to follow them.
And by listening to him, it didn't seem like it was particularly close for any of them. No sputters, nothing like that. DJ Alessandrini also on the lane as these guys pass him by. That's the leader in the, second place car in the Mazda field. And interestingly enough, Clifford Evans still out on the track, all alone now.
Well, it's the halfway point of the race right now. It was about 15 seconds ago. So there might be a few in those other classes that decided halfway point is the time to pit, including one of our leading.
Yeah, it was Matthew
Warner.
Yeah, Matthew Warner deciding to take his pit stop. Real bold strategy, if you ask me. Sam Devantier also rolling off the end of the pit lane there too in the TCR. Really bold strategy, if you ask me, pitting without a draft partner. It'll be really interesting to see how this ends up affecting both Mackenzie and Matthew.
Long stop from Jeff Tyler there. He gets left behind.
He did lead for a lot of the race. It could be just that there was some extra fuel there, not that he missed his marks or anything.
Well, Cobb is going to continue as leader of the race, but Alex Albert is right behind him. I don't think going to get dropped unless these couple Mazdas have something to say about it. But Jeff Tyler is now 3 or 4 seconds behind Cobb and Albert. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, lost a little bit of time on the way in. Spent a little bit longer in the pit box, and all of that means he's not coming out with first and second.
And Nathan Block, back at the front of the Mazda, or the TCR field, is still trying to make a move on Max Wobbles. They're too wide down into turn number 1 again. Man, and he just can't find a way to make that stick. Try the inside next time. Maybe that'll work. But really having a hard go of it here with Max. Knowing that the guys ahead of pit, I would be interested to see if any of these TCR guys decide to make their move into pit lane. And actually, no, never mind. Go ahead.
Thank you. Collins is, staying out as the leader, obviously at the moment. We've seen Benjamin Morton pit, Matthew Warner. That was interesting, to see him from, the top 2 decided he wanted to drop out. But you can understand Devontier maybe getting a little bit tired of this Nathan Block, Max Wobbles show and just wanted to do something else because he wasn't moving forward with them.
Well, and you got to think, I was just noticing the Mustangs actually had a pretty good undercut there. It looked like Daniel Rash was able to pick up about 1.5 seconds on a 1-lap undercut on the Mustang. So I wonder what the undercut looks like on these TCR cars with fresh tires. It could very well be worth it in terms of track position. I mean, if you can pit early and break away, I mean, that's gold. That being said, actually, I don't know. We'll have to see, because Matthew Warner is making ground on Sam Devantier, but I mean, it's hard to say relative to what's going on in front if he's making ground or not right now. We haven't had a full lap. We've just had an outlap from him, I believe.
Yeah, the trade-off is you can get a new set of tires with your pit stop in TCR, but you got to weigh that against how much is the draft worth. So side by side in this pack, and Giovanni Romano decides he's going to get into it, give a little bit of a bump to Block, try to help him get his nose in front, but he's still around the outside. He's brave around the outside. I think he can sail in a little bit too hot, unfortunately.
And I think Gio's perspective enough to realize that having Nathan out at the front might actually be better for the overall pace of the group. But Max is just not ready to give it up. Oh, he runs a little bit wide that time. Nathan will have another look, but, well, let's see what this Mazda does ahead of him.
Ought to be pretty easy around the kink flat out for both classes of car, but they do need to worry. They really do need to worry about what kind of pace Sam Devontier does now as well. It's not just about, we're losing touch with first and second. It's now Devontier has bailed on the pack, made his pit stop, and if by himself he's going faster than these guys squabbling over the lead of this pack, then all 4 of these drivers find themselves in trouble, might find themselves no longer in contention for a coveted podium position.
Well, and early reports on the undercut.
Right on board.
Sorry.
With one of these cars here in TCR. One at William Calhoun at the back of the field. As we wait on pit stops for Mazdas and TCRs, let's take a lap on board with the 99. There we are. On board with the 99 of William Calhoun, has been very, very patient in this pack. When was the last time we saw him try to battle for the lead? He's just been content to ride on board Mazda into the fence there.
That's Mansour Ibrahim.
Yeah, not one of our leaders from what I can tell. The dramas continue for Mansour Ibrahim, who to make his pit stop early for damage. Then parking lot in the first hairpin as Max Wobbles continues to back these guys up. Got to imagine, though, when it comes to pit stop time, that Romano and Calhoun are going to be in the best fuel position, might be going for that shorter stop, desperately hoping that they can rejoin the race a couple seconds ahead of Max Wobbles.
Mackenzie Corrin still pacing the field, but early indications on the undercut for Matthew Warner are not so hot, about 0.2 of a second faster that last time by than Mackenzie Corrin's. So making some ground, but not making tons of ground. So no need for Mackenzie to react just yet.
Devontier, fastest car on the track with a 59.3, makes him about half a second faster than Wobbles and Block on that lap. Wobbles and Block it is as they're going to go side by side towards the bus stop once again, and Wobbles is just defending the inside. There is nothing Block can do about that for the moment. When will he consider jumping into the pit lane? I would have thought that there's still about 20 minutes left of fuel in these TCR cars if they want to use it.
Absolutely.
A couple of other TCR drivers have decided that they want in. Here goes Block. Block down onto the lane to leave Wobbles, Romano, and Calhoun to continue. That is interesting strategy. He's not fully alone in that, knowing that Warner is already pitted, Devontier is already pitted, so too is Benjamin Morton, James Ferrugia, Kelly Stoops, and Randall Ruggles in class. In fact, I think that's Ruggles in front, just getting away out of his pit stall. Nathan Block overshoots the pit stall. So his undercut strategy here that he's trying on the pack, he's just shot himself in the foot a little bit with that one. Not shot himself in the face, but that is going to throw away 1 or 2 seconds that he would have desperately wanted to try to undercut and get clear. I'm going to call it nemesis in Max Wobbles.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just checking in on this this battle over here in the Mustang class. Austin Cobb back to the lead after dropping back as far as 3rd place at different points, presumably to gain a little bit of fuel. Alex Albert right behind him. Interestingly enough, though, Jeff Tyler, who was previously the fixture on Alex Albert's rear bumper and on his front bumper at different points, has dropped back pretty significantly, down almost 2 seconds. And I gotta think that we can attribute that to the extra fuel he had to take at the stop. Either way, the combination of that and losing the draft has cost him dearly. And you got to think that if he doesn't find someone to draft with in the next 10 to 15 minutes, he might actually be at risk for the end of this race because Travis Floyd and Daniel Rash are glued together bumper to bumper, and they are certainly going to be able to save some fuel that Jeff Tyler will not be able to. And these Mustangs are very, very fuel limited if they want to do it in one stop.
Yeah, a couple seconds in the pit stop that really just cost him the draft and is now continuing to cost him. And did take a look, Floyd and Rash, who are, well, I don't know if this is just Travis towing Daniel Rash around and getting him to the end, or if there's actually a little bit more reciprocal arrangement here. From when they pitted 2 laps before Cobb and Elbert, they are going to be very much on the wrong side of the fuel number to get this one home without a splash.
That's true. I forgot that Travis had to take that slightly earlier stop than everyone else.
They just both did a 2:05. They might be really ferociously trying to meet that fuel target. Certainly Daniel Rash is in the right place if that's his end game.
And if you're lifting down the straightaway, the 2:05 sounds about right.
Of course, traffic always a factor. More pit stops from TCR, but not the pack we interestingly had our eyes on. It's Tommy Toe and Laurie Forsey.
Mm-hmm.
With exactly 1 hour left in the race, we have seen pit stops from just about all of the Mazdas in the last 3 or 4 laps. We're still waiting on pit stops from a couple of key TCRs, and then it all starts to set up and strategize towards the end.
And these two TCRs, Gio and Max Wobbles, are going to be held up just a little bit by Travis Floyd and Daniel Rash there. All our favorite storylines coming together on the track.
Interesting that Nathan Block managed to rejoin the race ahead of Sam Devontier, though. So the early stop and some good laps from Devontier wasn't enough. Here comes Wobbles, your leader in TCR, also on the lane, Mackenzie Corrins, and Calhoun going to join Wobbles. So Romano continues through into the lead.
Yeah, and I wonder if Romano thinks that there's something to be gained here. Pushing it a little bit further on fuel than...
Calhoun's one of the ones I want to see what the pit stop time is like there, because there've been all sorts of different pit stop times. 42 seconds from Warner, 38 from Block, some others more in the middle. 46 from Devontier might have been a little long. Calhoun really should be in the position to have a shorter stop than Wobbles and try to jump him right now. I hope he has the fuel numbers correct.
Oh no. I've just noticed in the log that John D. Allen's disconnected. I'm not sure what's happened there, but he was running 3rd place in Mazda. So that's a significant loss to that.
I heard he missed his pit stall and he might have been right on the edge of fuel. No ability to reverse it back or go around or anything. And that might have been that for John D. Allen. Max Wobbles is going to get going. And he has been...
I was going to say Calhoun got a big advantage off the pit lane there. He's ahead of both Nathan Block and Sam Devontier as they come out of the pits. And Max Wobbles, he's like 3 seconds behind those guys. So they might finally been rid of Max Wobbles here.
Let's bring back a little bit of Mazda love. DJ Alessandrini leads, but it's only just ahead of Clifford Eben. So those two are reunited at last. Sonny Kanchan in 3rd, all on his lonesome. Then it looks like comes a little battle between Rui Coimbra and Miguel Vigo.
With a hungry Graham D. Sanders and Robert Bodie lurking in the background.
Every time I hear the name Sanders, it makes me hungry, that's for sure.
Hashtag not a sponsor.
Unfortunately not. It'd be great if they were. So they're going to be pitting in this time for Romano. I think he's gone another lap. Has he not? So he's looking for at least 2 longer than everyone else in class. That's interesting. If he can make this a very short stop, imagine he could very well come out in 3rd.
Yeah, come out ahead of that, or at least as a part of that group. And also, Mackenzie Corrins has filtered out now, and that has put him just ahead of Matthew Warner. So these are the soon-to-be leaders of the race once Gio takes his final stop, currently running 2nd and 3rd on the track. But Mackenzie manages to hold on to the lead after having to give it up earlier in the race to Matthew Warner on the overcut, as it turns out.
Yeah, so they were bumper to bumper. There was 7 laps difference in their pit stops, and now they are back together for the 2 cars that we think are best placed to win this race overall in the TCR class. So I don't know now how much more fuel is left for Romano in the 137. He's going to come into pit lane and be the last of all of our drivers to make a pit stop. This needs to be perfect for him. He's put himself in a good position by going this long, but then you really need to back that up by taking the right amount of fuel, but not too much, but not too little.
William Calhoun currently on the exit at turn number 2, presumably who Gio is competing with.
Yeah, Calhoun, Block, Devontier together is who he wants to come out ahead of, almost certainly. So it was 39 seconds for Calhoun. That's sort of the benchmark number he needs to beat, because that's who he was with right before they pitted.
Calhoun now into 3 and 4, exiting. And
first and second have cleared Gio now as he just gets rolling. That's going to end up a handy couple seconds, but not a gigantic number. I think I'm seeing 4 or 5 seconds is how much he's managed to overcut.
Williams just gone real loose in turn number 1, nearly put the thing in backwards. Gives up 2 spots to Nathan and to Sam. But he managed to reel it back in before getting off into the gravel. So not going to be the end of the race, but certainly, well, that was an exciting way to get around turn number 1.
And I needed to get back on the brakes, but did manage to keep it on the paved stuff, but then cedes those positions to Block and Devontier, who, updated number, are about 5 seconds behind Romano. Romano, though, still 8 seconds behind Corrance and Warner. So even with 53 minutes to go, I think Romano is going to struggle to be able to catch 2 drivers working together.
Yeah, that's a tall order. He's probably hoping that the guys behind him are going to battle and give up a little bit of time, because without the draft, he's going to be paying the price. It'll be interesting to see what his pace looks like once we see a few laps of him without a draft. Also, Max Wobbles, the 999, is also about 7 seconds behind this group of Nathan Block, Sam Devontier, and William Calhoun. So another sort of critical bit of lost time there. And Wobbles is actually lined up nose to tail with Benjamin Morton, who we haven't heard a lot from so far this race, but has been going pretty quietly and had a pretty solid qualifying effort in the low 59. So definitely someone who has the pace to compete with Wobbles.
Morton was giving him a little bit of a push, but well, I don't think, by my same logic, that Wobbles and Morton are going to be able to catch the pack ahead, for the same reasons I don't feel like Romano is going to be able to catch the overall leaders.
Yeah, that'll be tough. The only way I could imagine it is if Wobbles and Morton stick right together, and Block and Devontier and Calhoun all kind of get caught up battling a little bit. But so far, they've looked pretty willing to stay in the draft, and maybe all of them are just looking at that blue speck up the road from them.
Between Floyd and Rash, it looks like Daniel Rash has gotten ahead, and now Mike Burnett's also joined the party a little bit. So that's interesting that that's a 3-car battle there now, and Daniel Rash is no longer thinking about the saving game, I think. Which,
is a little bit interesting to contemplate, because you got to think that if you had to save a fair bit to make it to halfway, going to have to save some more to get to the end. Because I think Rash was still on strategy for fuel, was he not? It was Travis who was needing to save a whole bunch, wasn't he?
Rash and Floyd pitted at the same time, 2 laps before our leaders. Burnett splits in the middle of that. He's got a lap more fuel than Rash and Floyd in front. So if Rash and Floyd are headed for a 2-stop, Burnett could still squeak out a 1-stop and be able to jump both of them. It's all going to come down to the last, 2 laps, 3 laps in this class. Who dives for pit in with, 5 minutes left on the clock? who stays out and splutters and who can power it home could really matter between Tyler, Rash, Floyd, Burnett, you know, everywhere between third and sixth, fully up for grabs, depending on how this next, you know, more than half an hour goes.
Mm-hmm. But everyone now committed to their fuel strategies, so will be interesting to see what they're able to do.
They've made their fuel, now they've got a lay in it, I think.
Would definitely not recommend that.
No. Ask Roman, it's not advisable. You don't want to bathe in that stuff.
Yeah, I learned how that feels, fishing a fuel neck out of the, or sorry, not the fuel neck, but the reattaching the fuel hose to the fuel mat in the bottom of our Champ car. But anyways, those chemical burns are a story for another time.
Bit of Mazda action. Alessandrini and forgive me, Clifford Eben, Big C. They've been good buddies so far this race. They've worked together very, very productively. When will that cohesion break down? Is it with 10 laps to go? Is it with 2 laps to go? Or is this Alessandrini trying to break the draft right now? Really hoping for a little bit more traffic to slot in between. This TCR is definitely going to get clear, no worries, but then lurks one of the Mustangs as they approach the braking zone in the bus stop. Mustang's looking, and that's a big move from Clifford Eben, just saying, nope, don't think about it.
Yeah, and didn't have to worry too much. Joshua Powell gets it in a little bit hot and puts all 4 into the grass in the bus stop there, costing himself some time. He's currently running in the back half of the Mustang field.
10th of the 13 that took the start. Of course, lap 1, we lost Alexander Bueller, so it's just 12 running in that class. And we lost John D. Allen, the only car we've lost from the MX-5 field. And then it's been 2 pit stops from Randall Ruggles and a weird early one from Kelly Stoops. But every TCR car that started is still running. That's maybe a testament. They're quite tank built.
Yeah. And honestly, some really impressive battling. The fact that all those TCRs are still stuck together the way they have been.
Gap from top 2 in TCR to Romano in third has decreased, but only by about half a second. That is not a gap that is shrinking quite quickly enough to help out Romano.
And Sam Devontier is actually looking a little bit feisty right now, going too wide on the entry to the bus stop here on the outside of Nathan Block. Going to let Block have it this time, but he might be announcing his intention to compete for 4th place there. Both of them coming up behind a huge-ass sponsored car of Aaron Thacker there, who's running a little bit further down 9th place in the Mustang field. But a fair ways back, a full lap back of Jorge Saligo. Although that might just because... No, that is a full lap.
Oh, it's about 25 seconds up the road from Thacker is the next car for position. Saligo battling with Carl Hyatt. Just as I said, everything was going well for our TCR runners. Sven Kupferer is back on the lane for a 2nd time. That's not necessarily good news.
Yeah, I'm not sure what would have been the source of that one, because I did not see an accident. And
he's come off the banking and brought it to a stop and then towed, so no contact that I immediately saw, and he is the first retirement from the TCR class, so 1 retirement from each class now, unfortunately.
That's what we get for talking about it on the broadcast. Commentator's curse, right?
Gone and jinxed my own race. Romano's just gone fastest in the TCR field, pulled 7/10 out of the battling duo here of Corrance and Warner. Don't think there'll be any fuel concerns for Corrance and Warner. I think they can go full pelt to the end here. They're not in conservation mode so much anymore. But all that said, they just don't seem to have the pace of a now unleashed Romano.
It's a lot to ask, but if he can make 7/10 a lap, he can do an awful lot towards challenging for that podium. So we'll see what their times look like, how fast they start to react to this push coming from him.
Well, I think they're going to react by thinking about swapping places here. For a second, I thought Warner had gotten back ahead. Across the line this time, it's 59.4, 59.4 from the leading duo, and another 59 flat from Romano.
Now only 6.8 seconds behind. So might be more to say about that battle yet, and the leaders do have a fair amount of traffic just ahead of them.
DCR cars can be used to doing, 20-minute races, 30-minute races in that kind of context. 43 minutes still to go to try to claw back about 5 seconds to get within the slipstream window. It doesn't seem unachievable. It's a handful of seconds with, better part of 2/3 of an hour still to go.
Yeah, and if Gio keeps on getting lucky, the leader's having to go through the Mazdas in the second international horseshoe. He gets lucky on traffic like this. That kind of thing can really add up. Gio might be able to get all these Mazdas on the bank in here.
I nearly wrote him off, a couple laps ago, but since then he's been able to keep up the pace, get himself within 6 seconds of the lead, 5.5 seconds of second place, 4 seconds of the draft. As behind that, Devontier and Block are going to swap places. Oh, whoa! That is a big moment in the bus stop there between Devontier, Calhoun, and Block. What happened there? Looks like Devontier got in a bit hot. I caught the end of that. So did the broadcast. But wow, and then it's going to be a slowdown for Devontier as well. Both of these guys going to lose out. Calhoun and Devontier is going to let Block get away in fourth.
Yeah, it looked like Devontier tried to make a move around the outside, and Block he defended the inside and didn't expect Devontier to be there when he turned back to the right. Either way, the two of them made contact and all four wheels off. That's going to get you a penalty every time. That is going to have serious implications as Devontier is tapping the brakes all the way through the tri-oval trying to give back that penalty before it becomes a black flag.
And here's how much it's hurt Devontier is now Wobbles and Morton are with him. Devontier, that has cost him, is now reunited with his best friend from earlier in the race, Max Wobbles. And good turn of fortune for Benjamin Morton as well. Now he's in position to pick up some more spots.
I think all the fans were secretly cheering for that to happen. That is, Devontier and Wobbles be back together, so should provide some interesting stuff towards the end of the race here. And Block has finally gotten his wish as well after all that. It looks like he's gotten a bit of a breakaway. And we'll see if this time on the tri-oval William Calhoun is able to make up some time in the draft, or if he is just far enough to be out of reach for him. Critical run onto the banking this time. Calhoun looks to be still in the draft, just at the tail end of it, but Nathan Block's coming up on some Miatas that are looking a little bit defensive to me. Might end up, yes, and he has to give up a fair amount of time going into there. Let's see if he can get a nice clean run off. Calhoun's definitely got the ground back, but Block has gotten through safely, perhaps scarred by the recent dramas he's had through the bus stop there, deciding discretion is the better part of valor. Either way, Devontier has lost him, and Max Wobbles is in the draft. And that'll be our battle for 6th and 7th.
New personal best lap for third place in TCR. Giovanni Romano with a 58.2 is a full second faster than Corrins at the lead on that lap. That's the kind of lap he needed to find.
He is coming up on a big chunk of traffic, though, and that was the traffic that Mackenzie and Matthew had to deal with last time. But we'll see how it pans out. He might get lucky again here and end up catching these guys on the banking.
And the traffic's not done for the leading two either, though. They've got a bit of Mustang in front of them, which has proved difficult for the TCRs to get around.
Especially quick Mustangs, and Travis Floyd and Mike Burnett certainly are. And sure enough, Gio pulls onto the banking just in time to easily get past all these Mazdas, who are nicely spaced out to give him a draft as he overtakes every single one. Gotta love to see it when you're when you're the TCR trying to make up some ground on the leaders.
It's how you imagine it when you close your eyes. And now clear of both of them, Romano's got a little pocket of track to work through here. Looks like Kelly Stoops in front has just recently gone a lap down, but that is going to give a very, very nice draft to Romano, and he's going to hope that he can get ahead of Stoops before turn 1 here as well. So that actually places quite well for the third place runner in his purple gloves.
Now, critically, that time through the bus stop, Mackenzie Corrins and Matthew Warner were able to get clear of Travis Floyd just before they got into that corner. And it looks like Stoops is giving room to Gio here as they head into turn number 1. So pretty critical for Gio as well. That last lap, a second and a half faster than the leaders. That puts him only 3.5 seconds back. The dream is alive.
Whopperino between Warner and Corrins that time. Now Warner is going to lead. And I wonder if that is a tactical from Corrins, if he hopes Warner can be more aggressive through the traffic. Or if Warner was seeing Romano approaching and decided, you know what, we're late enough in the race now, it's time I just go for this.
Could very well be. Both of them having to drive their way around that lapped Mazda of Austin Tucker. And Travis Floyd getting overtaken by his teammate Gio Romano and giving him plenty of room.
As I look up and down my timing screen, it seems like more cars are in a battle than not, especially that seems to be true of TCR and Mustang. Things a little more spaced out for the Mazdas, which actually surprises me because they're the ones that draft most aggressively. But as far into the race, hour 50, and everyone still looks like they've got something to fight for.
Yeah, absolutely. At the front of the Mazda field, DJ Alessandrini's managed to stretch that gap to almost 3.5 seconds on Clifford Eben, who's in second place there. And he's slowly been gaining on him. Just a few tenths, maybe 100, sort of depending on the lap, has really been able to make up the ground pretty consistently. Though he is paying the price a little bit right now from some lap traffic, getting pushed offline by David Stark. That's David Stark pushing Bo Rigger offline, and who will shortly be pushing DJ Alessandrini offline, as David Stark will be passing him in the Mustang.
Yeah, work to do for Eben if he's going to catch back up to Alessandrini. Through the kink, easy to go around the outside for the Mazdas. They're very planted through there. Oh, but then he has to chop back underneath. That Mustang then got in hot on their compromised line.
Really
Mustang's
easy.
looking for it down the inside. You don't want this if you're the leader. He goes in hot around the outside. This hasn't quite been a textbook display from David Stark. He now's got Keenan Kusin right up behind him, and they're going to go side by side for 11th in class.
This is the beauty of multi-class racing right here. Implications everywhere.
That's how Alessandrini would have rathered it happen. Really saw Kusin roll out of the throttle there as well. So what's his thoughts? I'm looking here. Pitted a lap earlier than Cobb and Albert, so still within the possibility of getting to the end, and I wonder if that is what Keenan Kusin is aiming for.
Yeah, that could very well be it, and that would be a pretty significant move for him, I got to think, because I want to say that most everyone, with the possible exception of Rash, was it Burnett? Was looking like they had to do a two-stopper, other than, of course, Austin Cobb, Alex Albert, and Jeff Tyler all at the front.
Yeah, we had more drivers pit before the halfway than pit after in that class, which is sort of the telltale. Who can make it, who can't? Because if you save a bit early on and then still don't make it to the halfway, then you've set yourself a mountain of a task in the final half of the race when slipstream is a little harder to come by.
Yeah, always hard to find a partner for the second half of the race, especially if you're off strategy at all. Gio Romano now having to deal with some traffic as he heads through the field. Passes one Miata at the kink, and another one, that's DJ in front of him as they head into the International Horseshoe, the number 2. But Mackenzie and Matthew are both being held up ahead of him, by the looks of things, by David Stark, who we were just on board with a few moments ago, as well as Keenan. So Warner now getting a little bit of a gap. Looks like maybe half a second to a second there between him and Mackenzie Corrins. And Gio making up some ground, getting a nice healthy draft off of Keenan as they head towards the bus stop.
Yeah, Warner actually had his lead out to past 1 second, but then approaching the bus stop, about 3/10 of that evaporated because the draft still is powerful at the high speeds on the banking to about 1.5 seconds back. So there was, through the traffic, the possibility that Warner could have maybe tried to drop Corrins, hoping that he'd then fight with Romano and they could skulk away for the win. But didn't quite go like that. Corrins is back in the tow. Romano lost a tiny bit through the bus stop and isn't picking up any draft anymore, and had trouble with that Mustang of David Stark. So swung back just half a step in favor of Warner and Corrins, but then when Romano makes gains, he makes bigger gains than Warner and Corrins are able to swing back in their direction.
Yeah, flexed back out to almost 4 seconds there. But our TCR leaders are coming up on the back end of the front pack of the Mustangs, or at least they will be shortly. They've got Jeff Tyler just ahead of them, running in 3rd place, and then another few seconds down the road, Austin Cobb and Alex Albert. And these faster Mustangs, as we've observed, have been a real pain for these TCR guys to get around.
They both get up into their top gear, and by the end of the straight, even though they can pick up a little bit of a slipstream in the TCR cars, by the end of the straight, they're not really motoring down the gap.
Matthew Warner going to get the benefit, though, from that Jeff Tyler slipstream this time as they come off the exit of 4 towards the bus stop. Now, critically, the question is will he be able to get this position before the bus stop? And he's making
it, and Jeff Tyler rolled out of the throttle big time because he's still on his fuel conservation. Oh, that isn't too hot. That's going to be a slowdown. That is all 4 off for Matthew Warner, who was leading the race. Is he gonna have a slowdown on the entry there? Because if you cut the exit, you definitely pick up a slowdown penalty. We need to watch Matthew Warner. Does he have to give up the lead after cutting a fair chunk out of the bus stop?
And Gio's just wiping his hands together, looking at the problems up ahead of him.
Here comes Corrins. Big head of speed no matter the situation. Pulls up high. And around the outside. Bit hot. Warner is going to be able to hold on to the lead despite what we saw at the bus stop. But now, from Corrins to Romano, second to third, it's 1.8 seconds.
Ooh, I'm getting excited. How many minutes we got left? 30 minutes? Oh, this is going to be great.
Three-car pack would be fantastic for the lead. Problems for Sam Devontier.
Oh, yeah, way off in the grass there. And not super clear. Oh, it looks like he and... Who's that? Mike Burnett, who was running in 4th place. Looks like the two of them tangled, and it looks like Mike Burnett just lost track of Sam Devontier, if we're being honest. Burnett opting to take a big shortcut across the infield, and Sam Devontier opting for a slightly smaller one. It'll be interesting to see if either of those laps end up invalidated, but both of them paying the price for some contact there in the S's.
There's a lot of traffic there. I mean, you should, still know if someone, is at your door before you turn in, but well, you can understand a little bit the circumstances. There were 6-7 cars all packed together there, compressing into each other on the brakes down in towards turn 1, and Devontier, unfortunately, that's lost him 2 positions from Max Wobbles and Benjamin Morton, but he has more than almost 40 seconds then still ahead of Tommy Toe and James Ferrugia. So is going to swap for the lead in this TCR class.
Ooh.
And again,
yeah, some good defense there from Matthew Warner, and actually the two of them are coming up now on the leaders of the Mustang class. That's Austin Cobb and Alex Abbott just ahead of them. So and they've got another slower Mustang ahead of them who's a lap down. That looks like Joshua Powell in that Oreo sponsored car. But
ladies and gentlemen, a 3-car battle for the lead in TCR, and Mike Burnett has come down onto the lane. It could either be for damage, or he might have picked up a penalty for cutting so much of the infield. Either way, it's kind of unraveled a little bit of Mike Burnett's race, cost him a lot of positions. His leader, Matthew Warner, trying to cut his way through a fair chunk of Mustang traffic. He's just decided to back it up, wait for the oval, and they're going to have to go 3 wide to get past anyone here. The Mazda doesn't go all the way up the road initially. Matthew Warner is brave to keep the foot in. Cobb jumps back down low, and all 3 of them are going to sail around the outside. Is it headlights on yet?
That looks like it's headlights on, David.
So here we are racing into the darkness then at Daytona. If it's headlights on now, it might get quite dark in the remaining 26 minutes, actually. Didn't know it was going to get that dark, but it has been an overcast day.
I don't know if that Mazda that they just passed, I believe that was Recombra. Okay, yeah, it looked to me a little bit like his car was actually struggling to stay up on the banking. I think he's just got some toe problems in the rear. That car looks like it's got a little bit of damage. It's crabbing down towards the pit lane.
Well, here is Matthew Warner, steadfastly defending the lead in TCR. Makes the apex of turn 1 and is being very much followed by Mackenzie Corrins. And Giovanni Romano, you remember, first stint, he was so happy to just wait on the back of the train. Now he's caught first and second. I'm not seeing any big moves out of him.
Yeah, he gained a lot on that pit stop, and I want to say that he had one of the shortest at 38.8 sitting, while the other guys ahead of him at 41.8 and 42.3 stopped. So it's possible that he needs to spend some time in the draft here in order to have enough fuel to make it to the end.
I think he definitely saved big in the first hour and a half, though. And the shortest TCR pit stop I can see actually belongs to Nathan Block in 4th, about a second shorter. So I think now he's here, he might save a little bit, but it's not going to be too much, I don't imagine.
Yeah, he's in the right ballpark, that's for sure. Speaking of Nathan Block, he and William Calhoun are in a little bit of a battle. Calhoun just tagged him as they were heading into NASCAR number 1, just hitting the banking there. And he's going to get a run as they go towards the bus stop here. Stray Mazda for a little bit of extra flavor. Doesn't look like he's too intent on a move, though, just bump drafting at this point.
You got to worry about the gap between themselves and the battling Max Wobbles and Benjamin Morton. That could become 4 cars if they're not careful. Looks like Calhoun's going to put the bumper to the bumper of Nathan Block, push him along. Maybe the strategy is stay away from Wobbles and Morton. Don't make it become 4-car battle, but I worry Wobbles is close enough to be in the draft, and this might not be enough from these two.
Wobbles really nailed it through the bus stop that time by, and yeah, he got such a big run. I don't think they can deny him.
And then a good line into turn 1 as well, carried a bit more speed than looked like Block got in a little bit hot, and then Calhoun was just waiting on him. Wasn't able to get around. Wobble, so aggressive now. There he is, caught right up to them in the braking zone.
And Dragon Morton.
I think Block is saving. I think this is because Block is saving.
Could be. Could easily be.
So all the battles in TCR have brought themselves back together again, because it's top 3 in a line for the lead, and then Block, Calhoun, Wobbles, potentially Morton as well in a 4-car battle now for then the spots behind that.
Mm-hmm. And
still two stuck together for the lead of the Mustang class in Cobb and Albert, and they've still just getting away a little bit from Jeff Tyler. And El Sandrini and Eben have been reunited at the lead of the Mazda class as well. So there is no class leader who has more than about 0.4 of a second to their pursuer.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy stuff through the second horseshoe for our Mazda leaders. Just as we checked in with them, they were having some problems with TCR and some problems with traffic in their own class.
Yeah, and I was going to say, we haven't mentioned a lot of the battles in the Mazda field lower down, but Odis Adams and Robert Bodie have been pretty neck and neck for the last few laps here, trading blows. Of course, as I mentioned it, they go from 2 wide in turn 1 to single file in the first horseshoe. But those two have been having a solid battle, and Graham Sanders and Miguel Vigo in those matching geodesic liveried cars are both racing together as well, just as they were in practice. And actually, did I miscall that? Are those geodesics or are those... Yeah,
we've got about 4 or 5 geodesic cars, all of them in the Mazdas. That would be Graham Sanders, Miguel Vigo, Jack Anderek, Bo Vigor. There might have been another.
And speaking of our Mazda field, the TCR leaders have just cut their way through Odis Adams and Robert Bodie, heading on down towards the bus stop. Matthew Warner still in the lead, or actually back to the lead, after McKenzie had just edged him out at the line last time by.
I feel like I might have seen either Warner was more aggressive on the brakes, or there was also a bit of a lift and coast out of Corrance that time. Maybe just giving a car length or so into the bus stop so that you can get the good exit, pick up all of the momentum, and your top 3 in 0.2 of a second covering them. Corrance goes around the outside, gets his nose ahead of Warner, and here comes Romano all of a sudden looking to get amongst the action as well. Your top 3, throw a blanket on him. Warner has the inside, Corrance had the nose ahead. Romano was looking for which way he was going to go through traffic to try to get an advantage. In the end, he decides There's still 11 laps to go, still 20 minutes to go. It can wait.
That is interesting, though. I wonder if Matthew's timing this, because that's 2 laps in a row that he's been able to beat Matthew to the line by a few hundredths from second place. So he might get, both options here, saving fuel when he wants to, but also taking the lead when he needs to.
And then the next battle, Calhoun's got himself back to the lead of that little pack. Nathan Block, Max Wobbles, reunited, and reunited they are as they make contact. Max Wobbles moving Block out of the way to get into 5th place, and then Block also loses out of position to Benjamin Morton. You could sense the move coming, but that was still from a long way back. I don't think there was any overlap down the inside until Morton forcibly opened the door.
If there's no overlap, you just make overlap sometimes. But that's been pretty consistent for Max Wobbles this whole race, and that was a pretty solid move, all things considered. With these front-wheel drive cars, you can really lose the rear end and bring it back a long way. So there's not a lot of danger when you lay the bumper to someone like that in a relatively low-speed corner.
Yeah, so all excitement in TCR. In the MX-5 field, we had a bit of a battle going on between what I believe is brothers, Rui Coimbra and Paulo Coimbra. One's Club New York, one's Club Illinois, though. So, don't know what to read into that one. They're both registered within about, 5 minutes of each other, though.
Mm-hmm. Few cars putting themselves between those two.
TCR leads, hotting up again. Warner down the inside. Corrins around the outside once again has to yield. And then in this situation, what do you do if you're Giovanni Romano? He's still side by side. Is he looking for second? But he's around the outside. That's deeper on the brakes. He could have eased out of that one. He hasn't.
Yeah, and Corrins did a good job that time of kind of showing a wide entry and then tightening it off once Gio gave him the room. So a little bit of back and forth, slicing and dicing between those guys. And I've just gotten a glimpse of it on my end, but it occurs to me that 2 hours and 40 or 2 hours and 20 minutes, 10 minutes into this race, we are going to be seeing a pretty significant amount of rubble and grossness offline that will be a factor for any of these guys trying to overtake offline. Warner's gotten a really good run, though, and gained some significant time this time by.
The bus stop, Romano's going to be separated by Mustang from the two drivers he'd worked so hard to try and catch. And it goes down on the apron low on the Mustang, and with that move, might just be able to stick with them. But that's sort of panic mode when you're third in the train here. You end up coming into any of these corners, and you end up with traffic between yourself and everyone you wanted to be part of the battle with. Side by side in front of him, though, so he can pick and choose the draft whichever lane he feels like now. You've seen this. You can have your nose in front around the outside, and it's not going to work. The driver on the inside really has the advantage into turn one, it feels like.
Mm-hmm. Now, interestingly enough, that Mustang they just passed, there was Mike Burnett, who we thought might have a chance at making it on fuel in the Mustangs. It looks like he's decided he is not going to have the chance, and sure enough, he's not the only one. Daniel Rash has also snuck onto pit lane at some point for a second stop as well. So both drivers deciding to pit a little bit early in the Mustangs and maybe get some advantage out of those fresh tires. It will be interesting to see how many of the Mustangs can actually make it all the way on fuel.
That's going to be the big question for the final 5 minutes or so. That isn't it.
And Austin Cobb has dropped back, actually, behind Alex Albert, now almost, I'd say, 2 seconds behind, maybe 2.5. But that's a pretty significant gap. So either Austin's decided he needs to save fuel, or there's...
They caught some two-wide battling Mazdas into turn one. Cobb picked the lane, didn't end up being the correct one. Alex Albert did the opposite, sailed on through, and then Cobb lost a bunch of time behind those two in the first couple complexes of corners. If you're Alex Albert now, you're trying to bolt away. Do not let Austin Cobb catch you. For Cobb, the traffic has been the killer because he's played the game right. He's played the strategy well. He's been very, very quick. A worthy opponent, unfortunately, unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
How do you want the TCR lead battle, though? They're looking at going 3 wide. They are across 3 lanes, heading to the start-finish line. Matthew Warner down low, Giovanni Romano in the middle. Mackenzie Corrance up high as they catch a Mazda. This is not sustainable. This can't go forever. Into the braking zone in turn 1. So deep for Romano. Can he get that thing turned? No, he gets out on the marbles. You mentioned those marbles. They are building up there, and he skated just a little too wide. Warner back to the lead. Corrance back to second, Romano back into third. Now down the inside, using the traffic as a pick, goes Mackenzie Corrance to try to grab the lead, and there's contact. It sends Warner a little sideways. He mashes the throttle, and he picks it back up again. They are getting a little bit more elbows out at the front here, Devin.
Yeah, and Mackenzie Warner now holding the lead all by himself, but whew, that was a bit more pick than I think he was expecting to get. That's a heck of a deal for him. And Gio smiling as well. He's now into second place. Doesn't look like Matthew suffered any damage, though, from that contact, crucially, so he won't be down any speed on the straightaways.
Yeah, these TCR cars, they're pretty well tanked. A little bit of contact isn't going to damage them so much on this damage model. The real problem was just the speed he lost there. But doesn't lose touch with the top 3, so still absolutely anyone's game, the way they slipstream, the way they battle, and the crazy action that seems to occur when they catch some traffic.
Just glancing back through the field for anyone who's wondering, DJ Alessandrini and Christopher Devin are still together, and so is Alex Albert and Austin Cobb. Did have a question from the chat, someone asking about Kelly Stoops. Looks like he has retired from this race, joining only 4 retirees so far out of our field, but that's the second TCR that we've lost.
Unusually low number of retirees given that we're in Florida, but feel your point there.
Oh, you got me with that one. But our lead TCRs are still glued together, and now it's not Matthew Warner and Mackenzie Corrance, it's Gio Romano and Mackenzie Corrance. So Gio continuing that run towards the front.
I think Gio was finally successful in grabbing a position on the way into turn 1. Now he's looking for another, but surely it's going to come down to the final lap because, fast as he's been in this second stint, it's so hard for Romano to break the toe to the other two, short of them making a huge, horrible mistake. If they just keep their head, know that there's a big slipstream in play, they should be able to stay with him.
Well, and this is the point of the race. 11 minutes left. I gotta be wondering, if I'm Gio, I think I'd prefer to be in second place. And I do hear him lifting, staying behind. He might have watched Mackenzie get that run and beat Matthew to the line 4 or 5 times in a row, and he might be thinking he can do the same.
Yeah, that might be it. How far back can you be, still get your nose in front at the line? That's the sort of measurement you very much need in this situation. This time, he is going to go up high. He's going to get sent a little higher as well, but that's just because, well, Corrance doesn't want to get blocked out behind our Mazda leaders. So here comes the 3 TCR leaders on the 2 Mazda leaders. And that all works out just nicely on the way into turn 1. Warner has to send it a little bit deep. Big C sends it a little bit deep as well in that battle.
And Gio's
2 hours, 15 minutes of racing, and the final 10 minutes is shaping up very, very well for some great battles.
I was just going to say, Gio's trying to get overlap about everywhere. It looks like he's even looking down the inside into the kink here. Whew. Too wide now on the outside. And it's dirty out there on the outside of this turn, and he finds out.
So dirty.
Slides and gets all the way out in the grass. That lets Matthew Warner back by. And now it's Mackenzie Corrins, Matthew Warner, and Gio in third. Traffic ahead, though.
That's a life lesson learned the hard way. The rubber really has piled up offline. It was always, easy to send it in a little hot and have the rear slide out from underneath you in these big braking zones for the TCR. But I hope you can just see how solid the marbles are in places like there on the outside of the two horseshoes. You can hear it as well from behind the wheel, when you're driving over that detritus, and that just doesn't give you the lateral grip you're hoping for.
Checking in on Alex Albert and the Mustangs, he almost found out about those marbles there. He ran it real deep into the second horseshoe this time. He's still got about a 1.5 second lead, maybe 2 second lead over Austin Cobb, but Austin Cobb's been kind of dragging him back, trying really, really hard to get back into the range of that draft, but so far hasn't been able to. Jeff Tyler's still a distant third, and Travis Floyd got a little bit of separation now from Kyle Heyer. So that's your top 5 over in the Mustang class.
5 laps to go for your leaders when they cross the line. That could be 5, could be 4 to go for the Mustangs. So keep an eye across that. Who still needs another stop? We've seen Rash and Aaron Thacker preemptively take their second stops, but everyone else still out there hoping and praying that things fall their way and they can make it to the end without an extra stop. Because right now, to make it this far and then need the splash and dash, that hurts more than if you just realized 20 minutes ago you needed another stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Following Alex Albert across the line here down into turn number 1. Still trying to hold his lead. A lap time battle going on for those two.
Looking good for Cobb. Just visually, the distance would suggest that he'd be picking up the toe on the draft. It's not quite a second yet, but it doesn't need to be for it to be advantage Cobb.
Now I've just got a glimpse. Oh yes, I've just got a glimpse of Nathan Block a mile out into the infield, and going back to the replay, the cause of that, he and Max Wobbles just got together and. Well, Wobbles won that one, you got to say, on the exit. It looked like Nathan was just coming over, didn't even seem to notice he was there, and gets tagged, sent a mile out into the grass, and loses a significant amount of ground. So that puts Max Wobbles now up into 4th place. And that puts William Calhoun now up into 4th place, with Max Wobbles a few car lengths behind him, and actually Benjamin Morton between the two of them. So that's Benjamin Morton in 5th. William Calhoun in 4th.
The infield there is where the rallycross course is at Daytona, but that's not the configuration we're meant to be running this evening.
Back to the lead. Matthew Warner's making a move on the outside. Gio's right behind.
Yeah, once again, your top 3 all together, and that for Giovanni Romano just then was the fastest lap of the race. So in the darkness, track cooling off, picking up a good slipstream. It's getting quick as they lent on each other for the lead, Corrins and Warner. Now Romano looks down the inside of the hairpin, throws it in there for 2nd place.
A well-executed move there. Just got on the brakes a little bit harder than Matthew Warner was able to from that inside.
It's looking the 158.0 from Romano in race conditions does go 0.3 faster than his qualifying time, 0.2 faster than the pole time today. So that is, sure, the track's cooled off a little bit. He had a little bit of a toe, but given that the tires have been worn down a little bit, they were saving fuel at points in this race. To pull out a time like that in the race, head and shoulders above the qualifying times, quite impressive, I think.
Ducks back down to try and get a little bit of extra slipstream. And it seemed like my prediction was wrong. Like, he did not want to be in second place going towards the line, despite my thoughts to the contrary. And actually, I'm seeing Warner lifting a little bit as we're heading towards the bus stop this time, managing that gap, maybe trying to get a run. Ooh, and Mackenzie was really tight inside on the exit there. I think he caught just enough of the track to avoid the slowdown, but that was a close call.
Yep, sure is. Once again, side by side for the lead. Romano with the extra speed, but taking the long way around. Warner, huge amount of speed. Is there a lane for him to go into? Does he want to go there? No, he's going to put the bumper to Romano, try to help him around the outside, but I think that is futile and in vain. Romano knows it. I think he rolled out of it just an itty bit. Still trying to keep the nose around the outside. Still, and now has to relinquish.
Meanwhile, in our Mustang battle, Alex Albert and Austin Cobb are now bumper to bumper. So very, very close for those two. And DJ Alessandrini and Clifford Evan, well, why not be bumper to bumper too? So, of course, top 2 in both the other classes and top 3 at the lead, all battling for the end of the race.
An absolute abundance of places for us to look to see a bit of action here towards the end of the HJ Raw before the 24 continuing the classic iRacing format that got discontinued officially, but we have kept alive here from Team Huge Ass as our most recent and newest HJ special event, now recurring. And if this is how it goes today, I think you can pencil this one in for 2022 again.
Yeah, I gotta say, this was an early candidate for best race of the year.
At the lead, they are bump drafting again, Romano and Corrins, and once again, Warner is just holding back a car length or two on the way into the bus stop. When they get to the start-finish line, will be, what do they say, popsicle sticks in the air, 2 to go?
Mm-hmm. And the remainder of the TCR field has shook itself out a little bit. As reported, William Calhoun 4th, Benjamin Morton 5th, Max Wobbles 6th, Nathan Block 7th, and then about a second gap between each of them into Block, who's about 4 seconds back.
Corrins tried to block Romano into the traffic. Romano down onto the apron on the tri-oval to get the lead. Interesting. They all navigate safely, though. What we didn't want was an incident. But still, with 2 laps to go, not done and dusted whatsoever. From second place, from third place, you can still pick up the draft, make a move. And honestly, this late in the race, up front isn't where I'd want to be.
Move for the lead in the Mustangs. Austin Cobb just got a little bit of a run on the exit of the bus stop. He's now 2 wide on the outside of turn number 4 as they're heading down towards the front straight with Alex Albert. Be interesting to see if he's able to make anything happen.
And it'll be 2 to go for the Mustangs as well, seeing where they are relative to the overall leaders. Looks like Cobb might have to just roll out of that one. At the very least, Alex Albert's got the inside into turn 1, which is normally what you want. Cobb's still being aggressive around the outside, but that is wide, a little too wide. And we've seen now late in the race that around the outside is not the way.
Checking back into the front, Gio Romano now about a second gap as they head towards the bus stop.
A little more like 0.4 of a second, and that evaporates quickly as well. The evidence of your eyes would say that it's 3 TCRs in formation, less than a minute on the clock. This is where the normal race would end. But using the new iRacing UI, you can only set race lengths in increments of 5 minutes if it's a timed race. So here we go with a 2-hour, 25-minute race. And the white flag is waiting for our top 3 at the start-finish line. Who's going to take that white flag first? Now, returning the favor, Corrins down onto the apron to get around the inside of Romano. They are level, starting the final lap of the HJ Raw before the 24-20-21. And the MX-5s are battling side by side in front of them as well, Devin.
That Kyle Heyer was down in the grass too. That explains that cloud of dust.
Chopping and changing too. Corrance will swat between them to hold on to the TCR lead. Dangerous territory for Warner with 2 cars for traffic separating him from the leaders. But Romano cuts back underneath at the hairpin. Interesting move. So it's Romano leading TCR, Albert leading Mustang, Alessandrini leading Clifford Eben. This is going to be one hell of a final lap at Daytona. Let's keep our eyes on TCR and then go class by class. Warner, an interesting position, back in 3rd. It's definitely going to be some traffic on the final lap for the TCR cars.
Cobb's diving for fuel on the last lap. Alex Albert carries on.
That is so critical. So Austin Cobb out of fuel. Alex Albert continues. Travis Floyd took a second stop. Lead TCR though. Jeff Tyler continues through into second. So into the bus stop for the final time. Giovanni has 0.6 of a second. Corrance is hoping to pick up a monster run to the line, but Romano's actually going to get a bit of slipstream off Jorge Saligo here, who looks like he's going to give the tow, and then unfortunately it'll run out for Romano. So has Corrance timed this to perfection, or can Romano waltz it home for a win in the HJ Raw before the 24? Flat out, pedal mashed all the way to the firewall for all of our top 3 TCR competitors. Corrance is closing, but I think it looks like Romano might just have timed it well, and he's going to be the winner. Corrance can't do anything about it, and Warner grabs 3rd. Next class to the line looks like it would be the Mustangs, would it?
Yeah, Mustangs are going to be overtaking the leaders of the MX-5 class here, I got to think, as they head onto the back straight out of turn number 2. A little bit of Miata traffic, though, ahead here for Alex Albert. Luckily, though, he's got a lot of room back because Jeff Tyler is more than 10 seconds behind him, with Austin Cobb having had to make that late stop for fuel. So not going to be a ton of drama for Alex Albert here, but DJ Alessandrini and Clifford Eben are nose to tail as they head through turns number 3 and 4.
Yep, so they are. Alessandrini's got his nose in front, but it's the perfect positioning for Clifford Eben to go up high on the banking, carry the speed. Around the outside, he's got his nose in front, and there's nothing Alessandrini can do anymore. Looks like Clifford Eben first across the line in the MX-5 class to take that win for himself. And he's wearing the Simicube INX Racing livery there. So great battles down to the final lap in all 3 classes. Alex Albert grabs the win because on the final lap, it was out of fuel for Austin Cobb, needed the splash and dash to get to the end.
And Jeff Tyler crosses in second, Austin Cobb in third, Travis Floyd coming through the bus stop now, going to end up in 4th in that Mustang class. And Sony Kanchan manages to cross the line in 3rd place in the Miatas. Very respectable after battling early with John D. Allen. Had a quiet second half of the race once John had to disconnect.
So just about everyone across the line now, and all of our winners safely across the line to take their trophies. So here's the finishing results as they come. Giovanni Romano, the winner in TCR from Mackenzie Corrance and Matthew Warner. What a great battle they put on. Clean stuff for almost an hour in that final stint. All of them deserve big pat on the back, big congratulations, because they raced each other hard, they raced each other fair. It was anyone's game. It's delighted I am to see that kind of battle. And it's William Calhoun for 4th, Benjamin Morton for 5th in class, Max Wobble 6th, Nathan Block 7th, Sam Devontier ending up in 8th, Tommy Toe in 9th, James Ferrugia in 10th, Laurie Forsey 11th, Blaine Sparling 12th, and then Randall Ruggles in 13th. Devon to the Mustang class.
Well, I'm just enjoying for the moment Gio Romano doing some front wheel drive reverse donuts on the Daytona logo here in the infield. But to speak to the Mustang class, Alex Albert shaking his way through turn number 3. Looks like he had enough fuel to go almost a whole another lap. Jeff Tyler ends up in 2nd place after saving some fuel there. Austin Cobb in 3rd place. Travis Floyd finishing fourth. Jorge Saligo recovers from some dramas early in the race, beating Daniel Roche, who had to take 2 stops. Mike Burnett also taking 2 stops a little bit early, trying to make that undercut work. Joshua Powell, Kyle Heyer, Keenan Kusin, David Stark, and Aaron Thacker rounding out the Mustangs who finished the race. The Miata field, of course, won by Clifford Evan after that spectacular last lap move. He only needed to lead 1 lap, and he led the most important one. DJ Alessandrini in second, Sonny Kanchan in third, Graham Sanders in fourth, Miguel Vigo and Odie Adams in fifth and sixth, Robert Bodie in seventh, Rick Coimbra in eighth, Paulo Coimbra in ninth, Bo Rigor in 10th, Jack Anderek in 10th, Austin Tucker in 11th, Brandon Smith 12th, Scott Whitehouse 13th, and Mansur Ibrahim, the last of our finishers, in 14th place in the Miata class. Great race by all.
Well, what a race it was. Battles everywhere all the time. And that's what you get on the Daytona Road Course in these lower powered cars. You get in the higher powered cars too, but for these guys, the fuel management was important. The slipstream was critical, and timing your run at the end, well, it was the downfall of Mackenzie Corrance, and it was to the delight of the winner, Giovanni Romano. But let us look first to the Mazda MX-5 class, where we can grab the winner. It's a man very well accustomed to running in that car. It's Big C, Clifford Eben, as he is also known. What a race between you and DJ Alessandrini. You were apart, you were together, you were apart, and at the end, you timed the run just right.
Yeah, he almost lost me there. I got a little slowdown penalty, and a bunch of lappers came through, and it really split us up, but he got some bad luck. It seemed like luck was kind of the name of the game today to get us to break away after that stack up on the first lap. So, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to wait until the end and try to get by him as long as I could hang with, so I guess it worked out.
What was the fuel strategy like for the Mazdas? The Mustangs had to conserve. The TCRs seem like they can go forever. How flexible was the fuel window in your class?
Well, I barely made it to the halfway point. I'd say a lap or two past halfway. So I was thinking it was going to be pretty close because I saved the first run too. So I wasn't sure how it was going to be. But after I just filled it up again and saved behind DJ, I was, I think, like 3 or 4 laps to the good in that one. So it wasn't as close as I thought, but worked out, and it was nice being safe on fuel, not really having to save too much.
To go from second at the bus stop to nose in front at the line, how do you measure that one out? Did you know that was always going to be a winning move, or was it a wing and a prayer?
Usually that's what you want to do, is just be second place here. I feel bad for kind of backstabbing DJ after he did most of the heavy work all race long, but I guess, when it came down to it, I just decided, hang back. About 0.3 or 0.4 is enough of a gap to get a run, and then they can't get you back. So I felt pretty confident that if I could just slingshot by him and hold him off to the end, that I could get the job done there.
It's racing in it. If he hadn't seen that move coming, then he hadn't been in this business long enough. Thank you for coming out racing with us. Congratulations on your win there, and putting on a bit of excitement in that class as well. Any final summation of the race? Any shout outs to give? What's on your mind post race?
Well, first people that come to mind is my team, INX Racing. They helped me out a lot, but DJ as well for just pulling me along that whole race. As soon as I got to the lead, people started running me down, so he did most of the work, kind of pulling me along, and I appreciate that. Just making it a 2-car race between us. It worked out in the end. Obviously, you guys a huge ass for the broadcast and the great event. It's always fun to run in these. So yeah, just big thanks to you guys. I know a lot of work goes into stuff like this, so I really appreciate it.
Keep your ear to the ground, and you might be first to know about future events. Thanks once again.
All right, thank you.
Devin Peters, let's move one more rung up the ladder. And, well, I know he's your good friend. It's our winner in the Mustang class, Alex Albert.
Hey there, Alex. Hell of a race out there today.
Hey, bud.
Easy.
I don't know about easy, but it was tough. Really had to save fuel the whole time. Had a great race with Austin and Jeff. Austin had a lot of pace. Yeah, just talking to him there in the green room. He was just a touch short though in that last lap. I sputtered coming to the line myself, so I did a big lift once I saw him dive on pit road. If we would have had to battle it out on the last lap, it's hard to say if I would have had enough to get to the line under power.
Yeah, it was that extra minute we added onto this race ended up being pretty critical for you guys. Really close race between all three of you right up to the pit stop there. But then Jeff Tyler dropped off after that. Did you see what happened there?
Yeah, Jeff being teammate, we were in radio communication. He was really short on fuel in that first stint. He was able to stretch it and make it to the same lap as me, but I think he had to lift so much to save on the end lap. It put him back just a bit, and then his stop was just a little bit longer than ours. Maybe missed the box a bit, but yeah, Austin got away, and luckily I was able to close down that. It was about 1.3 seconds. He left the pit lane ahead of me. I was able to close it down and get back in his draft, and that was crucial to my race because, like I mentioned, he had the pace advantage on me, and if I wouldn't have been able to use his draft, he would have got away. So there was another time where he had a bit of a gap on me, and I really had to turn on the jets there for a lap or so and actually burn more fuel than I wanted. But it was, the strategy. I had to get up there. So yeah, it was an exciting race. It's kind of a nail biter the whole time, not knowing if it was going to go an extra lap and managing the fuel the whole time. Just a bummer that Austin got caught up there behind those Miatas, and when I took the lead with about 10 to go. But luckily, he had the pace to get back up there and make a race out of it. So yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a real excellent job out there. Seemed like the TCRs were giving you guys a bit of a hard time when they were coming by too.
Yeah, everyone's running their own race, so it can be tough. I got a slowdown there at one point. TCR tried to make a move on me going to the bus stop. We talked about it after the race. It's just, racing deal. Racing drivers are, we take what we can. We're not big on giving. So, I get it. He was greedy. He was just going and running his race, and it all worked out in the end. So, no hard feelings anywhere.
Well, great job there, Mr. Joss. Anyone you'd like to thank for tonight?
I want to thank my wife. Couldn't do this without her. And I want to thank all the people at the HJBC for putting on these races. I want to thank David Haynes especially for being the promoter. I think this is a great event. And I want to thank all my competitors for coming out tonight and spending it with us here on this wonderful Friday night. And look forward to seeing everyone next week at Daytona 24.
Heck yeah. Good job.
Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, he's been waiting for, the TCR winner, Giovanni Romano. Gio, I don't think you led a whole lot of laps today, but you were in the right places at the right time, and I'm guessing that was by design rather than luck.
Well, you know what they say, all you have to do is lead the last one, right? But yeah, that was a really fun race. For the first, I guess, 80, 90 minutes, over half the race, I was pretty much just fuel saving. The goal was just to go as long as possible and shorten up that pit stop. And the way it sort of played out, I decided I might as well just go as deep as possible into the race and hope that the fresh tires make a difference, which they really did. And that's how I was able to reel in the lead pack.
Very broad fuel window for the TCR. We saw a few come in early. We saw you famously go 2 laps longer than everyone else there, despite easy one stop for everyone. To what extent do you think the fuel saving played into it?
I'm not sure, because it's one of those things where I had the opportunity to do it, because I was sort of never really. I had like maybe a few laps where I was in front of the pack and started pushing, and then I binned it in turn 1. So then I ended up back at the back of a train again. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna lose too much time passing these guys. Might as well just save fuel. And it probably gained me. I think the difference was I was able to separate myself from that second pack in the pits, and that put me out on my own, and then I was able to just push hard with the fresh tires. So, yeah, a bit of an effect, I suppose.
And then what about the rev limiter for the TCR? Because it seems like anytime you picked up a good draft, that by the end of the straight into turn one, maybe that was going to stub your momentum.
Yeah, it's made it a lot more difficult to pass because, well, you get draft locked and then you get to the end of the straight and you can't actually pass. So even though you're draft locked, it's really difficult to pass. So it definitely made for an interesting race at the end when you're battling because it's well just difficult to pass people and you really have to drive hard to make it work. So definitely it was a big factor.
Often in multi-class racing, the TCR is the slowest category, always looking in their mirrors. What's it like being the big dog for once?
Not sure. I guess I haven't driven the TCR much lately, so I'm not so much aware of how it feels, I guess. I do know that TCR drivers tend to hate GT4 drivers with a passion. Uh, so I guess everyone was kind of happy that the GT4s were excluded because it gave us some freedom and some breathing space to be the fastest class.
Congratulations to you once again, grabbing the win for the 2021 edition of the HJ Raw before the 24. We've heard all of the soppy whatever from Alex. Who are you going to thank?
Oh well, I still have to thank you guys for putting this race on because it was fantastic. Had a lot of fun out there, and specifically, I'll thank Matt and Mackenzie for putting on a great finish with me at the end. It was a great battle, and I think we also did a good job of giving each other just enough space too. I was worried it might end up in in tears, but it didn't, and I think we had a really good finish.
Did look like a lot of respect up front between you three, despite how hard you were then pushing each other at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks to them again.
Righty. Well, we've spoken to all three winners. I can see a few others knocking on our door here, Devon. I reckon we try to quickly grab a word because there is two sides to every story, two sides to every coin. So what about Austin Cobb? Fuel ever so critical in those Mustangs. What point did you know you were in trouble there?
Honestly, I kind of figured after leading half of that second stint that I was going to be in trouble. I was aggressively fuel saving even in the lead without that draft and was just kind of hoping and praying.
What was it like in that final stint? You were pushing Alex along, Alex was pushing you along. You gave each other a great fight right up until that final lap where it seems like you ran out of go juice.
Yeah, it was a good fight. I mean, I knew he was playing the strategy, so I was playing the strategy too. We were kind of working together. Honestly, I was staying out front a little bit because I knew I had some pretty good pace and wanted to keep ahead of P3. And then was just hoping for the best. But good, clean race with Alex. Had a lot of fun. Just unfortunate. I maybe could have sputtered across that last lap, but decided to just go ahead and relinquish P2 and get the fuel and come in with a solid podium.
Well, thanks for coming out. Thanks for giving us plenty to talk about and showing, unfortunately, exactly what a knife edge the strategy was in class today.
Yeah, absolutely. Had a lot of fun. Thanks for the host, guys, and thanks to my team, Apex V2R, for all the support. Had a lot of fun and can't wait to do it again.
Right, Austin Cobb he was running a lot of the race second in the Mustang class. In the end, with the splash and dash, comes across the line in third. Still a podium position. Devon, who do you take a fancy to?
Well, I was pretty impressed with how DJ Alessandrini did out there today, running first place for what felt like the entire race. Edged out at the end there, though, DJ. How did that feel?
Oh, it felt awful. Turns out that's not where you want to be. I mean, I obviously knew that coming into the last lap, but there wasn't really a whole much I could do at Daytona. I was just happy that Cliff and I, just working together, were able to make the gap that we did. It would have probably been a little bit more fun if the Mustang in the beginning wasn't coming through clobbering everyone. So it would have been more than just me and Cliff. But the first part of the race was real fun, just head down, just working together. I mean, that's what makes me out of fun is the co-opetition that happens in them. And then I'm not sure what happened with Cliff and his pit stop, but I thought he was going to be like 5 seconds up the road from me after the pit stops. And we came out like right next to each other. I wasn't expecting that. Thank goodness we had fast repairs. TCR car bounced off the inner wall, being really ambitious, and kind of tweaked the steering and made my hood a little bit of a parachute. So I thought the race was over at that point. So it was cool just to be in the fight at the end after that. So yeah, not entirely sure what happened to Cliff after I pit, because he had like a 3-second lead and he was saving fuel behind me the whole time. So I thought for sure he was going to come out like 5 seconds ahead of me, but he came out right next to me. So weird.
Yeah, by the sounds of things, he decided that second place was the place to be. But great effort out there today, man, and really, really impressive the way you were setting pace the whole way through. And I love the look of that Grid Life car. Anyone you need to thank today?
Yeah, I'm gonna thank Cliff for just working well. His bump drafts are A+. They're real good. And then just thank all my friends that were just kind of hanging out in Discord and chilling and just BSing throughout the entire race. So kept it fun, kept it fresh, and thanks for the organizers putting it on. It's cool that they do the road before the 24 because for some reason iRacing dropped it. So we appreciate you guys throwing this on. It's like literally the only endurance race that the Miata does that's not being killed by GT3 Cup cars. So we appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you for coming out.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Let's punch through this one more man to hear from, and that'll be Mackenzie Corrance. What a crazy battle in the final, about half an hour there amongst the top three. What was your perspective of it, and has your heart rate settled?
No, it's still coming down. It was pretty fun little race there. I mean, I didn't take tires, so I was kind of holding on for dear life and doing what I could, trying to kind of be sneaky and kind of fight where I could, and wasn't quite enough, but it wasn't for lack of trying.
Any highlights, lowlights, learning moments from 2 hours, 25 minutes of Daytona?
Take front tires next time. And yeah, take front tires next time.
Well, want to say thank you to you for coming out and racing. And I hope we might be able to see you again in a future HJ event.
I hope so as well. Thanks.
He does a job half as good as he did today. He'll get a good result again, I'm sure. Devon, that I think is about all we have time for on the HJ Raw Before the 24 2021 edition. I said it during the race. I'm thinking it again. If that is the kind of, lead swapping in every class, every lap, hour and hour on end, I think it has to make a comeback again January 2022.
Sign me up. My calendar is wide open.
Well, fantastic. Thank you to Michael Derby as well, who's been with us all broadcast long with the production, with the pictures. Literally could not do it without him. Thank you goes out to all of our HJ fans, viewers, all of our competitors, of course, all 44 of them showing up today and, well, making it an event it was. I've been David Haynes. It's been Devon Peters alongside me. And for the first HJ special event of 2021, we sign off and we say, please subscribe, stick with us because we've got more events, more broadcasts coming this year. We want you to be a part of it. Good night.